Chapter 368. Big Ice Cube, you can't. Once you use your internal energy, it will cause the poison to spread. Hurry up and stop. Chu Qingyan was so scared that she wanted to withdraw her hand. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free from his grip. And the warm current in her body kept increasing. She couldn't help but look up at him. Her voice was almost filled with tears. Big Ice Cube, hurry up, but when she met his half-smiling gaze, her voice came to a halt. Why did the Big Ice Cube look so indifferent? Could it be that there was something she didn't know? It's just warming up. It doesn't take much internal energy, Xiao Su answered casually. Chu Qingyan stared at him suspiciously. Are you sure? What do you think? Xiao Su saw that her face had regained its color, so he withdrew his hand and said calmly. Chu Qingyan felt that Big Ice Cube was good at everything, but he loved to imitate her words. And every time, he would use it to shut her up. It was so infuriating. But at this moment, she found that her whole body was warm and she was not afraid of the cold. She said very mysteriously, Big Ice Cube, your internal energy is really useful. When your clothes are wet, it can automatically dry them. When it's cold in winter, it can even keep out the cold. Looking at her useless appearance, Xiao Su chose to turn a blind eye. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips after being treated like air by Big Ice Cube. She was just curious. And she believed that in the future, she would also have such an enviable internal energy. After walking for 5 or 6 days, they finally arrived at the border between the Junlan state and the Jiang state. Thanks to the token that Jun Zixing gave them, they were unimpeded all the way. Moreover, the officials seemed to have received orders. As soon as they saw the token, they would send people to accompany them. Therefore, their journey was very smooth. Other than being a little tired from the journey, everything else was very comfortable. However, when Chu Qingyan saw the boundary line, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but click her tongue. No one would have thought that the boundary between Junlan and Jiang was actually a vast ocean. Did that mean that if they wanted to go to Jiang, they had to cross this ocean? Are you kidding me? Chu Qingyan looked at the endless sea and couldn't help but lament in her heart. How long would it take to cross this sea? Fortunately, the local officials had already sent people to arrange a boat. Once they arrived, they could directly board the boat. As soon as she stepped on the deck, Chu Qingyan stepped on the wooden planks with some curiosity. This was her first time on a boat. She had taken a speedboat when she went out to play in the modern world, but she had never come in contact with such a slow-moving boat. Although Jun Zixing's threat to them wasn't right, her subsequent treatment of them was still acceptable. The ship was very big and had everything they needed. However, Big Ice Cube refused the escort of the local officials and only accepted boatmen who were familiar with the sea. Thus, the group of them entered the vast ocean on a sunny morning. Chu Qingyan strolled around and came back. She walked up and down the entire ship, full of curiosity. When she came back, she heard Turin reporting the news of the past 2 days to Big Ice Cube. The 4 princes' properties were confiscated. Their immediate family members were detained in the imperial prison and imprisoned for life. Their 9 generations were sent to the border and never hired again. Prince Zhe was beheaded. 30% of the officials were promoted, and 40% of the officials were dismissed. After the report, Turin finally commented, Jun Zixing's way of handling things should be gentle and gentle. She didn't show any mercy when she should be ruthless. As the person in power, it's only right. Hualing continued, also, Master, that Junzi Mei heard that you left the capital and sent people to chase after you. However, she was suppressed by Jun Zixing's troops. I heard that after dealing with the affairs of the imperial court, Jun Zixing wanted to betroth her to this year's martial arts champion. Xiao Su's expression didn't change. He didn't care about this kind of unimportant person who would be forgotten after a while. However, Chu Qingyan shook her head. She made such a fuss, but in the end, she was going to marry someone she didn't like. What was the point? Junzi Sheng probably chose the martial arts champion to suppress Junzi Mei's temper. After all, she was too arrogant and domineering, and her temper was too fierce. It was probably impossible for her to receive Junzi Sheng's previous favor. That night when she barged into the imperial palace, she had already exposed her hidden strength in the imperial palace. With this kind of unstable factor that could stab him at any time, how could Junzi Sheng sleep peacefully? In addition, after experiencing this turmoil, Junzi Sheng had become more tactful and subtle. Therefore, in his eyes, Junzi Mei was no longer the same as before. However, this kind of person didn't deserve his pity. This was the cause that he had sown, and that was why he had reaped such results. I haven't seen your shadow since early in the morning. Where did you go? Chu Qingyan's thoughts were suddenly interrupted by his sudden question. Chu Qingyan returned to her senses but didn't look at him. Her eyes flashed with a smile. I didn't go anywhere. I just strolled around. I can't sleep in every day. I'm a growing person. After she finished speaking, she stole a glance at him. Unfortunately, he raised his eyebrows and sneered. Obviously, he didn't believe her words. However, she had no choice. She wouldn't tell him what she had been doing recently. Xiao Su saw that she was looking around but not looking at him. He knew that she was hiding something from him, but he didn't intend to argue with her. It was written in the book of parenting that children would have their own little secrets when they reached a certain age. It was very normal. If one tried to dig deeper, it would be counterproductive. He was afraid that the child would dislike them. Therefore, he thought that the little fellow's recent behavior was very consistent with the description of symptoms in the book of parenting. Therefore, he let her go. Hearing the sound of pages turning, Chu Qingyan turned around in surprise. The big ice block didn't ask her to get to the bottom of the matter. Instead, he was reading the book by himself. She was a little flattered. Oh no, she was shocked. Could it be that he saw through her? Did he already know? But she had asked Turan and the others to keep it a secret. They shouldn't have told others. However, she didn't have to think for long before a wave came crashing over, causing Chu Qingyan to feel dizzy. Why did she feel nauseous? Chu Qingyan reached out to press her chest. However, the feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Her stomach began to churn. Her face turned pale and she immediately ran to the railing. She supported herself with both hands and began to vomit. After the sky turned dark, she had an ominous feeling. She was seasick. Damn it! Seeing that she didn't look well, Xiao Su ran out in a hurry and followed her. Seeing that she was vomiting painfully, he couldn't help but reach out to pat her back. Where do you feel uncomfortable? Ask Ethereal to come over and take a look. Chu Qingyan recovered a little strength. She turned around and grabbed his sleeve. Her eyes were watery and her face was pained. Big ice block, I'm seasick. So? He frowned. Catch me. Her eyes went black and she lost consciousness. It was only the first day, but she fainted beautifully. Chapter 369. When she woke up, the sky was already dark. The sea breeze caused the sails to flap loudly, and the strong wind was very scary in the dark. In her hazy state, Chu Qingyan couldn't remember where she was at this time. In addition, her head was very heavy, and she suddenly felt scared. Why wasn't there any light? She grabbed the quilt and slowly covered her head with it. Her heart was in a panic. The person sitting at the table heard the obvious rapid breathing in the air and the rustling sound. He reached out and the lamp on the table was lit. The room was filled with warm light. Chu Qingyan felt a slight stinging pain in her eyes, and then the darkness was quickly replaced by light. She vaguely regained consciousness. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the hazy figure under the light. She subconsciously called out, "Big ice cube." The person under the light slowly turned around and looked at her face. It seemed that because of the warm light, he had become gentler than usual. You missed lunch and dinner. The beauty was immediately destroyed by his words. Chu Qingyan sat up and looked at him with a plaintive face. I've already vomited like this, and you still have the mood to bicker with me? Then I won't bicker with you. You can eat tomorrow. Xiao Su answered very cooperatively. Chu Qingyan became even more plaintive. Anyway, I'm not hungry. Knock knock, there was a knock on the door. Come in. Xiao Su's tone was indifferent. The door opened, and a graceful figure walked in. Little girl, you're too weak. You fainted as soon as you got on the boat. TSK, TSK, TSK. With this body, how can you cross mountains and cross rivers with your highness? Other than Cheng Yen Luo, Chu Qingyan couldn't think of a second person who could scold her in such a way. At this time, her whole body was weak and dizzy, and her stomach was churning. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan was sick and broke the pot. Every one of you is bullying me. I'm ignoring you. After saying that, she covered her head with the quilt and decided not to talk to them anymore. Oh my, you're putting on airs because you're sick. Fine, let His Highness serve you. I'm going to take my beauty sleep. I'm not going to chat with you. Cheng Yanluo placed the bowl of medicine in front of Xiao Su and crossed her arms. Let her drink it while it's hot. After saying that, he walked out and closed the door, shutting the room in silence. Because she was covered with a blanket, she couldn't see what was going on outside. After a while, she felt that the room was unbearably quiet. Could it be that big ice cube had gone out too? But she didn't hear any footsteps. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, her eyes lit up. The blanket had been lifted up by a slender finger. She looked in the direction of the finger and saw a large ice cube holding a bowl of medicine. I'm not drinking. She subconsciously refused. It was too bitter. As soon as she smelled it, she felt bitterness in her throat. Therefore, without thinking, she wanted to crawl under the blanket. Unfortunately, someone didn't let her. Xiao Su pulled her up and held the bowl of medicine in front of her. You have two choices. 1, you drink it yourself. 2, I help you drink it. You choose. Bastard, how were these two choices? He was clearly forcing her to drink it. But if he forced her to drink it, she would rather die. A wise man knows when to retreat. She, Chu Qingyan, accepted her fate. She said resolutely, I'll drink it myself. She took the bowl of medicine and took a deep breath. Then, she decided that it was better to end the pain quickly than to prolong the pain, so she drank it in one go. But the moment the medicine entered her mouth, her eyes widened. So the medicine wasn't bitter. Yen Luo had added sugar to it. This thought made her unable to react in time, so she choked instantly. She coughed so hard that she forgot about everything else. Xiao Su quickly snatched the bowl from her to prevent her from knocking it over. Then, he freed one hand to help her catch her breath. You can even choke on a bowl of medicine. What should I say about you? She didn't know if she had heard wrongly, but there was a hint of helplessness in his voice. However, she knew that she was in the wrong. After Chu Qingyan stopped coughing, she didn't take it seriously. She finished the rest of the medicine with his hand. She didn't expect that she would be forced to choose the second choice in the end. It had to be said that after becoming a divine doctor, this kind of minor illness was a piece of cake for them. After drinking the medicine, Chu Qingyan felt that the dizziness that had been plaguing her had disappeared. Moreover, her stomach felt better. She couldn't help but fall onto the bed and sigh. It's the happiest when there's no illness or disaster. I didn't think much of it in the past, but when I feel dizzy and hot, I miss it so much. Xiao Su stood up and placed the bowl on the table. When he heard her words, he suddenly thought of the words that she had been nagging at him. Simple was easy to be satisfied. Ordinary was happiness. This little fellow's words sometimes made sense. A grumbling sound interrupted his train of thought. He turned his head in confusion and happened to meet her somewhat unnatural smile. I'm hungry. Who just said that she wasn't hungry anyway? Xiao Su looked at her with his arms crossed. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. Was there a need to be so stingy? She blinked. She couldn't win against him, but fighting was better than fighting. So she put her hands on one end of the quilt and began to make a scene on the bed. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I'm hungry, I want to eat. I'm hungry, I want to eat. Important things had to be said 3 times. Xiao Su looked at the person who was rolling on the bed and his eyes twitched. She looked like a little cat that was whining and complaining. It seems that you're not hungry enough. You still have the strength to toss and turn. The mournful whining stopped abruptly, leaving behind a pair of watery eyes. I'm hungry, I want to eat, I want to be kept, I want to be petted. Meow. When she was in the dormitory, she often played like this with her roommates, so when the scene reappeared, she subconsciously blurted it out and didn't realize that she had said anything inappropriate. But Xiao Su, who had already been bombarded by Chu Qingyan's words, did not have any special thoughts about her words. He only felt that this was more like a little cat. Chu Qingyan could faintly hear something being hit outside the door. She thought that maybe the wind was too strong and had blown something down. In the end, the result of the scene was that Chu Qingyan received a sumptuous dinner. But because she was too hungry and ate too much, she was burping the entire night. Chu Qingyan felt that she had lost a lot of face. But what Chu Qingyan didn't know was that her life's innocence had been ruined tonight. On the ship, the fire spirit was mysteriously talking to the wood spirit and the others about what he had heard outside the little princess consort's room today. I really couldn't tell that the little princess consort was such an unrestrained person. The wood spirit commented in disbelief. She's a little mischievous. Since ancient times, heroes have always come from youths. There's nothing strange about it. Ethereal casually replied. The fire spirit and the others looked at him. His words were clearly perfunctory. He had been strange these past few days. But Turin spoke at this time. Don't you think that the little princess consort is too mature? Everyone heard this and nodded in agreement. It was indeed so. But it was perfect for their master. One was sly and one was black-bellied, a perfect match. Chapter 370. She had to admit that Yen Luo's medicine was very useful. After drinking it, she was basically immune to the waves. When she looked at the waves, she didn't feel dizzy anymore. Early in the morning, before the sun had even risen, Chu Qingyan had already gotten up. Mistress, you were seasick yesterday. Don't you want to rest today? Xining came in with a basin of water and asked with a little distress. It's fine. My body isn't that weak. Chu Qingyan smiled and stretched. She took a cloth towel and wiped her cheeks. Xining went out and came back with a food box in her hand. She opened the lid and took out the dishes inside. Mistress, yesterday His Highness ordered the chef to make the dishes for you without any fishy smell. Look, the dishes this morning are very light and delicious. Hearing Xining's laughter, Chu Qingyan walked over and sat down. Looking at the dishes on the table, a faint warmth welled up in her heart. She picked up the chopsticks and ate a few mouthfuls. She felt that the taste was good. Later, have someone prepare a similar dish. When His Highness gets up, send it over. Xining curved her lips into a smile. Yes, mistress. After breakfast, Chu Qingyan pushed open the door. It was still dark outside, only a few stars twinkling weakly in the sky. The wind was very strong, almost blowing her back to her room. Chu Qingyan gathered her cloak and put on her hat, then quickly walked out of the door. She didn't stop and went straight to the deck. The fierce cavalry guarding the ship saw the moving silkworm cocoon and were already used to it. They looked straight ahead and watched her pass by. When she reached the deck, there was already someone waiting there. A special lantern hung on the mast. It wouldn't be extinguished because of the strong wind, but because of the influence of the wind, the shadows cast on the ship were somewhat vague. Chu Qingyan took off her hat and said to the figure, "I'm here." The figure with his back to her turned around. It was Turan. "Little princess, why don't you show me the swordsmanship that you've been practicing for the past few days?" Earth Spirit said. "Okay." Chu Qingyan took off her cloak and casually tossed it aside. The white fox fur coat was already hanging on a crossbar. At this time, she was wearing a tight-fitting corset, which made it easier for her to move her limbs. She took the long sword that Turan had thrown to her. Holding the sword with her right hand, she stroked the sword with her left index and middle finger. Facing the faint light, she suddenly drew the sword. Her sword pierced through the void, and her movements were as smooth as flowing water. Sometimes, she would leap into the air and stab. Sometimes, she would flip and leap like a swimming dragon. Sometimes, she would spit out her tongue like a white snake. Her body was as light as a swallow, and her sword was as fast as lightning. She had been practicing this set of sword techniques for an hour. Her lapel was soaked in sweat, but she did not seem to feel it. She only slowly exhaled when she finally withdrew her sword. "How is it?" Chu Qingyan turned around and asked. Turan nodded, and a trace of appreciation appeared in his eyes. "Little princess has almost finished practicing the 12 moves of the Raging Flame sword. This subordinate feels that it's time to change to the next set." Chu Qingyan finally let out a sigh of relief. Turan was famous for being strict. Being able to get his affirmation, it was not in vain that she woke up early to practice. "Okay." Chu Qingyan nodded and said, "Demonstrate it once first." "I will follow." "And, this subordinate will only demonstrate this set of sword techniques once. How much you can remember depends on yourself." Turan did not speak nonsense. He drew his sword and drew it against the wind. Chu Qingyan held the sword and stood upright. Her eyes were fixed on his movements. This set of sword techniques was more complicated than the Raging Flame sword. It was also more flexible, but its lethality was also stronger. Turan was the leader of the hidden guards and was usually very busy. It was already very difficult for him to squeeze out a bit of time to teach her. So, her eyes did not stray, not daring to miss a single detail. But it had to be said that a strict teacher produced a fine disciple. Turan's martial arts were very strong. Other than Hualing and a few others that could compete with him, there were very few opponents. She had practiced with him for a while and could clearly feel that she had made a lot of progress. Her moves went from shaky at the beginning to flexible now. Turan put away his sword. His breathing was steady, unlike her who was panting after practicing a set of moves. She thought that this was the difference in their skills. "Little princess, practice alone. This subordinate has other matters to attend to and will leave first." Turan nodded at her and then left. Chu Qingyan knew that he had important matters to attend to, so she did not say anything and let him leave. She closed her eyes and went over the moves that Turan had just demonstrated in her mind. Then she picked up the sword and started practicing. Turan had said that at her current age, her body was at its softest and was very malleable. If she was willing to work hard, it was not impossible for her to become outstanding. She was also glad that she had a photographic memory. In the past, she was too lazy and never used her strengths. Now that she wanted to work hard, she realized that she was not completely useless. That day, she used her sword to defend against the enemy in the princess palace. She found that the simple sword moves she had learned in the king's palace were still useful. It was just that she was lacking in practice and her skills were still shallow. If it wasn't for Hualing and the others opening the way, she would not have been able to break through the encirclement so smoothly. She had said to herself before that once she was out of danger, she would properly practice martial arts. But she found that there were many things that she could not always say in her heart. Otherwise, if she waited a bit longer, all her plans would be delayed. So, when she left Junlan, she secretly went to find Turan, hoping that he could resume teaching her in the king's palace. In the past, she had been forced to practice martial arts by the big ice cube. She did not like being forced by others and her heart was a bit conflicted. So, she always slacked off and did not put much effort into it. But this time, she was the one who brought it up. She no longer wanted to hide under someone else's wings. She was a person who would do what she said. Once she made up her mind, she would not easily give up. She trained hard in the morning and the cold wind pierced her bones, but she did not care. What she wanted was a day when she no longer needed to be protected by others. And this time, she had made up her mind to work hard because she had another goal. She swung her sword and spun her body in the air. She went from being unfamiliar to proficient, practicing over and over again. On the deck to the side, two people were leaning against the railing. Turin, don't you hate teaching people the most? Last time, you couldn't disobey master's orders. Why did you agree this time without master's orders? Hualing was clearly very curious. Turin's gaze swept over the figure training hard on the deck and he faintly smiled. Do you want a weak mistress, or do you want a mistress who can fight side by side with master? Of course it's the latter. Hualing replied without hesitation. But after replying, Hualing couldn't help smiling. You're still the same, always putting master first. This sentence was both right and wrong. Turin remembered that day when he had just finished patrolling the area, he had heard the little princess call out to him. Turin, I want to practice martial arts again. Can I ask you for a favor? She smiled as she sincerely asked him. Why? He was very serious about everything, so he treated others the same. He would never forget how unwilling she was to practice Qigong in the past. I can't be protected by His Highness forever, right? So, I want to become strong. Chapter 371. Turin looked at the person who was practicing and said with a bit of emotion, sometimes I feel that the marriage bestowed by the retired emperor was quite reliable. Hualing was clearly shocked when he heard this. Didn't you dislike it before? Aren't you the same? Turin asked back. Hualing scratched his head. I did dislike it at the time, but I didn't feel that strongly afterwards. When the little princess came to find me, I asked her. Turin suddenly changed the topic. What did you ask? Hualing blurted out. Turin remembered that she said she wanted to become stronger. He said, with His Highness' protection, you don't need to worry about danger. That was her answer at the time. But I also want to protect him. He remembered the little princess' smile at the time. It was a bit faint, but it was incomparably serious. So you agreed to her? Hualing heard his story and couldn't help being stunned. Although her words sound like she overestimates herself, who can guarantee the future? Turin gave a soft laugh. Hualing nodded in agreement, that's right. You have to have a dream. What if you see a ghost? However, Hualing added, Turin, don't you feel like our words are a bit strange right now? Turin looked at him deeply. Your words have already been successfully taken away by the little princess. They had been together for almost a year. That person who had accidentally barged in was slowly influencing them with her words and actions. Even master was not spared. Hualing was stunned at first before giving an indifferent shrug. Anyway, I'm not the only one who's been taken away. So the two of them turned to do proper business. Chu Qingyan practiced the sword move no less than 10 times before panting as she put away her sword. When Turin was demonstrating, he had told her that this sword move was called the Heaven and Earth Sword. If the Raging Flame sword was focused on defense, then the Heaven and Earth sword was focused on offense. She found that Xiao Laiqi's sword moves did not have as many variations as other people's because they did not care about looking good, but rather about being fast and accurate. How could flowery moves be used to kill enemies? After she calmed her breathing, she turned around and handed the sword in her hand to Xiao Laiqi who was standing at the side. She took the cloak and draped it over her body. She did not tell Big Ice Cube that she practiced martial arts because she wanted to give him a surprise. At this time, the sun was rising, and the Big Ice Cube should be waking up soon. Because of his health, he woke up later than usual in the Sichuan. If it was in the past, he would have already gotten up to practice his sword. Chu Qingyan looked at the sky. There was already a bit of daylight at the intersection of the water and the sky. She narrowed her eyes. She heard that they would reach the border of the Jiang kingdom in 3 days. She was worried about the whereabouts of the love grass. But right now, she still had something important to do. That was the Big Ice Cube's birthday. She had spent a lot of effort to prepare a gift for him. She hoped that he would not be disappointed when the time came. She returned to her room with a faint smile. She had to hurry up and change her clothes because she still had to accompany Big Ice Cube for dinner later. Because the morning exercise had consumed a lot of energy, she began to wolf down the food as soon as she sat down. Xiao Su held the bowl and was a little surprised. Didn't you eat until you were full last night and rolled around in bed? Why do you look like a reincarnated hungry ghost when you wake up early in the morning? 2 drops of sweat appeared on her forehead because of her curiosity towards Big Ice Cube. She couldn't have been discovered, right? I'm growing. She stammered when she opened her mouth, but she was confident in the end. Xiao Su nodded. The little fellow had indeed grown a lot in the past month, and her small body had also thickened. She was no longer as weak as before. When we reach the Jiang kingdom, I'll get someone to make you some clothes that fit you. Xiao Su put down the bowl and looked at her. Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked down at her clothes when she heard that. It seemed that her clothes had become much shorter recently. No wonder Big Ice Cube looked at her with such disdain. However, since someone was willing to give her money to spend, it would be a waste not to take it. She nodded happily and agreed. Big Ice Cube, a month has passed so quickly. But when I think about it, I feel that a lot of things have happened. After Chu Qingyan was full, she began to feel emotional. Shi Xuan escaped, Jun Lan was detained, and he reversed Jun Lan's situation. He went all the way to the west and crossed the sea. Everything seemed to have happened yesterday, but if she thought about it carefully, she would not be able to recall it even after a day and a night. Xiao Su replied indifferently. He was not a person who liked to be sad. He was already giving the little fellow face by responding to her emotions. She was already used to Big Ice Cube's indifference. She rolled her eyes and asked, "What is the most unforgettable thing in your life?" "This life?" Xiao Su sneered when he heard that. He seemed to disagree. 20 years is too short. It can't be said to be the most unforgettable thing. Chu Qingyan's face darkened. It was a good question, but it was met with his disdain. Chu Qingyan turned her head and snorted. "You don't have it." "I do, but I won't tell you." Xiao Su didn't probe further into her words. "You're too boring. I'm not going to play with you." Chu Qingyan thought of something and deliberately stuck her tongue out at him. She quickly walked out the door. Seeing her go out, Xiao Su did not stop her. Instead, he took her question to heart. "The most unforgettable thing?" That day, she cried her eyes out and told him that she did not want him to leave her alone. That night, she rushed over to block that arrow. That day, after the medicinal bath, she supported him with difficulty but did not dare to let go. There was no most unforgettable word. She did not expect that the memories of these 20 years would not be as deep as the memories after she came. Xiao Su curled his lips. Only after Hualing came in did he retract his smile. "What's the matter?" Water Spirit sent news that there is still no news of the love grass. Hualing sighed. "Investigate again." Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. His mood did not fluctuate much because of these words. "Yes." Hualing retreated. Xiao Su got up. Lin Hai stood with his hands behind his back. In the past 20 years, he had experienced all kinds of hardships and dangers. He had long since disregarded life and death. It was just that this was the first time he wanted to live. After Chu Qingyan left, she turned to Cheng Yanluo's room. At this time, Cheng Yanluo had already woken up. Seeing Chu Qingyan's refreshed expression, she could not help but smile. "Finished practicing martial arts?" The sun is already high up in the sky. I've already finished practicing. Chu Qingyan did not stand on ceremony and found a place to sit down. TSK, TSK, TSK. In the past, you would not have woken up at this time. If it were not for the fact that you have been a little more diligent recently, you would have been caught by your big ice cube and punished to copy characters. Don't get carried away. Cheng Yenluo mercilessly exposed her. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Please don't expose me. Cheng Yenluo raised her eyebrows. Why are you not in your room with your big ice cube at this time? Why are you here? Of course it's business. How's the song I asked you to practice? Chu Qingyan tugged at her sleeve and asked. I knew you wouldn't ask me anything good. Cheng Yenluo glared at her. Hee, you play the zither so well. Wouldn't it be a waste if you don't play it for others to hear? She acted coquettishly. Hee. Chapter 372. Cheng Yenluo couldn't resist her coquettishness, so she pointed at something covered by a cloth. Chu Qingyan lifted the cloth and saw a guqin lying quietly on the ground. Chu Qingyan turned to look at Cheng Yenluo, who said, I've been practicing hard recently so that I won't embarrass you. Chu Qingyan immediately hugged her. Sister Yenluo, you're the best. Go away. Go away. You're only sweet-talking now. Cheng Yenluo shooed her away as though she was shooing a mosquito. Of course, she knew that Yenluo was joking. However, she could clearly feel that Yenluo had lost a lot of weight. Sister Yenluo, did our chef mistreat you recently? Look at you. You're already thin, but now you're even thinner. Chu Qingyan frowned and looked at her worriedly. Cheng Yenluo released her hand and sat down. She poured herself a cup of tea and smiled. Aren't all girls trying to slim down these days? I'm just following the trend. She didn't believe her. However, she recalled what had happened on the roof and decided not to ask further. She was just hurt by love. She was an outsider, so what could she say? Whoever started the trouble should end it. Sister Yenluo, I'll get Xining to prepare some of your favorite pastries and send them over. That was all she could do. Cheng Yenluo raised her eyebrows and smiled. Little girl, I'm not as weak as you think. Chu Qingyan stuck her tongue out. Can't you let your sister care for you? Alright, I think it's better to use something more practical instead of food. For example, money. Cheng Yenluo smiled slyly. Chu Qingyan pushed her away. You're only thinking about money. Be careful not to fall into it. Don't you know that money isn't everything, but you can't do anything without money? I'm happy to fall into it. It's none of your business. Cheng Yenluo crossed her legs and looked like a ruffian. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that she had regained her usual vigor. However, she couldn't help but bicker with her again. After a while, she walked out. Earlier on, she had practiced the sword dance with Sister Yenluo. She had finally gotten the rhythm right and the effect was pretty good. Thus, she left with satisfaction. She thought for a moment and went to the kitchen. Just as she passed by the small window, she saw a familiar figure. She immediately stopped in her tracks, and a voice came from inside. She doesn't like things that are too sweet. You can add some chili to the dishes. It's best not to add ginger. She doesn't like the taste of ginger. Alright. Chu Qingyan listened to Ethereal's long-winded instructions to Chef and was a little surprised. This was the first time she saw him being so meticulous. She couldn't help but sigh regretfully. If only Yenluo could see this scene. Just as she was in a daze, the voice inside had already disappeared. She immediately turned to another corner, and only after the ethereal spirit left did she enter the kitchen. For the past few days, he had been researching how to make a cake without a rice cooker. He had just figured out the method yesterday, and had been practicing it repeatedly. When the chefs in the kitchen saw that this little cooking expert had come again, they immediately retreated. This so-called cooking didn't mean that the food was delicious, but it meant that the kitchen would burn down if she wasn't careful. Seeing the chef's attitude towards her, Chu Qingyan smiled bitterly. Actually, she was a good cook, but she wasn't cooking now. There weren't any modern kitchen utensils in ancient times, so it was really difficult for her. This time, she managed to cook a decent cake, but the texture was slightly inferior. However, she believed that after a few more tries, she would be able to make a cake that was exactly the same as the one in modern times. She rubbed her sore arms, put down the finished product, and left. She had other important things to do. After Chu Qingyan left, the chefs saw that the kitchen was still intact and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it didn't burn down this time. Xining was already waiting for her. "Mistress, the lanterns and ribbons are ready. We're just waiting for your order to set them up," Xining reported. N. Chu Qingyan followed her to the small warehouse and inspected the style of the lanterns. Xining helped while saying, "These lanterns were made by Lord Wood's spirit according to the blueprint you gave." This servant saw the finished product. "It's very beautiful. These lanterns were all foldable and didn't take up much space. It was also very easy to set them up." Chu Qingyan stood up and patted the dust off her hands. She nodded in satisfaction. "You can start decorating tomorrow afternoon. Have Huoling arrange a few people to help you. If you can't find a place, call Jean Xian." "Okay." Xining agreed. Chu Qingyan thought for a bit and left the small warehouse. She had forgotten to check tomorrow night's menu with the kitchen. As soon as she appeared on the deck, a figure happily jumped towards her. Kai, tomorrow is Shu." As soon as Chu Qingyan heard her father speak, she knew what he was going to say and immediately stopped him. "Do you want His Highness to hear it?" Right, we have to maintain a sense of mystery." Father Chu immediately covered his mouth. Chu Qingyan smiled. "All right, it's fine if you say it softly. Just don't go around shouting, and letting His Highness know is enough." "No, Father won't say it." Father Chu shook his head. Then he mysteriously whispered into his daughter's ear, Kai, Father will tell you. Father has also prepared a gift for son-in-law." "What gift?" Chu Qingyan was instantly curious and asked with a smile. No, we have to maintain a sense of mystery." Father Chu covered his mouth again and innocently blinked at his daughter. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. Father was actually keeping her in suspense. However, Big Ice Cube should be happy that Father had such intentions. "Father, Mother has just recovered. Remember not to let her out in the wind." Chu Qingyan recalled this matter and reminded him. "Father knows. She's not a child. You're always so long-winded. I can take care of my own wife. You just have to take care of yourselves." Father Chu imitated her and rolled his eyes. It was rare to see her father so serious. Chu Qingyan shook her head and laughed. Okay. I'll leave Mother to you. But Kai, Ethereal is so pitiful. Look, he just recovered. Little Yama doesn't want him anymore." Father Chu started to ramble again. "Father, let's not interfere with Ethereal and Sister Yenlua's matters. Let nature take its course." Chu Qingyan was afraid that her father would stir up trouble again, so she hurriedly reminded him. Father Chu shook his head disapprovingly. "Little Kai, you don't understand. When two people don't interact with each other for the rest of their lives, they will need help from others. If I don't help, they will forget about each other forever." Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Why did her father's words sound so strange? Could it be that he had fallen in love with the role of matchmaker? Chapter 373. Father, why don't you stop for a while and let them have a cold war for a while? She tried to persuade him. Father Chu thought for a while, then reluctantly agreed. All right, I'll let them have a cold war for a while. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief, but her father's next sentence almost made her stumble. 2 days should be enough. The day after tomorrow, Father Jiang will start to matchmake them. Then these 2 days are so boring. Why don't Father matchmake Xining and that boy Jean Xan? Chu Qingyan felt that she could only pray for these 2 couples in her heart. As for the rest, there was nothing she could do. She was speechless to have a father who was so passionate about being a matchmaker. After wandering around the kitchen, Chu Qingyan returned to Xiao Su's room. She didn't see him in the morning and only came back when it was time for lunch. Xiao Su's gaze shifted from the book to her. Where did you go? The big ice cube rarely asked her about her thoughts. Did she give herself away by specially asking? She immediately revealed a smile. I didn't go anywhere, I just walked around. Is that so? Xiao Su raised his brows slightly, his face full of disbelief. Didn't you already walk around when you first boarded the ship? Big ice cube, don't you know that the same scenery will feel different when one appreciates it with a different mindset? Chu Qingyan argued, but her voice was weak, and it seemed like she was trying to cover it up. Oh. This prince didn't know that when one's mindset is different, one will be stained with a burnt smell after wandering around? Then the next time you wander around, what will your body smell like? The smell of fish? Or does it smell like rouge? Xiao Su put down the book in his hand and looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. Chu Qingyan looked at the person in front of her, one word written in her eyes. She didn't believe him. She instantly broke out in cold sweat. Tomorrow was his birthday. If he found out that something was wrong, wouldn't all her efforts be for naught? However, it seemed that things were developing in a direction that she did not expect. It seems like you're hiding something from this prince, said Xiao Su indifferently, hitting the nail on the head. I didn't. Chu Qingyan straightened her neck, with a look that said, what can you do about it? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. He said to the door, Hualing, as soon as he finished speaking, the fire spirit appeared. Your subordinate is here. Chu Qingyan knew something was wrong. Report what the little princess has done today. Xiao Su glanced at her and said casually. Hualing nodded. The little princess consort woke up this morning and went to find Miss Cheng to discuss the zither. It took 2 hours. After coming out, she went to the kitchen to find the chef to compare her cooking skills, which took half an hour. Then she met old Master Chu on the road and talked to him for a bit before finally returning to her room. Chu Qingyan's heart relaxed. Fortunately, she had told Hualing and the others not to reveal the fact that she was secretly preparing for Big Ice Cube's birthday. Only then could she avoid being exposed. There didn't seem to be any problems. Then the burnt smell on her body. Xiao Su's tone was faint. No one could tell what he was thinking. The little princess consort burnt the rice and almost burned down the kitchen. Hualing snickered. Xiao Su nodded. This sounded reasonable, so he waved his hand to dismiss him. Yes. Before Hualing turned to leave, he gave her a victory sign. Chu Qingyan suppressed her laughter and turned to smile innocently at her big ice cube. See, I didn't lie to you. You're still doubting me. Xiao Su curled his lips in response to her complaint. Whether it's true or not is still up for debate. So cold. Big Ice Cube's smile mysteriously caused the temperature in the air to drop. So scary. At this time, Xining just happened to bring the dishes over. The two's topic ended there. In the blink of an eye, it was night time. Chu Qingyan shook her arm. It was like Big Ice Cube had eaten the wrong medicine today. He actually had her go write the character Lin. She had spent the entire afternoon writing and her entire hand was about to be crippled. As soon as she stepped out of the door, she saw Jean Xian standing outside, and the words her father had said to her today immediately popped up in her mind. She walked over and couldn't help saying, if father asks you to do anything these 2 days, remember to think it over before doing it. She immediately turned to leave after saying this. She was afraid that he would ask why. She couldn't tell him that her father wanted to help him matchmake. Jean Xin had just heard his master's words when she disappeared in the blink of an eye. This made him a bit confused. Was old Master Chu that scary? Why did everyone say this to him? Then when old Master Chu told him to go to the small warehouse, should he still go? Jean Xin hesitated. At night, Chu Qingyan was stretching her legs in her room. Although she was young and her body was soft, compared to other people who started practicing martial arts at the age of 5 or 6, she was still lacking by a lot. So she had to work hard to make up for her late start. After stretching her legs, she began to do handstands. When she was in the modern world, handstands, push-ups, sit-ups, and so on were all painful things for her. She would never do them if she could avoid them. But now, she was willing to endure them. She was upside down and her blood flowed down. She felt that she could use this time to think about life. However, a pair of shoes appeared in front of her. "Master, His Highness is looking for you." Xining bent down and looked into her eyes. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Why was Big Ice Cube looking for her at this time? Could it be that her plan had been exposed? Did he say what it was about? She stood up and asked. Xining shook her head. Seeing this, she changed her clothes and left the room with a nervous heart. She walked towards Xiao Su's room. At this time, thousands of miles away in Sichuan Kingdom, Sichuan Emperor looked at the memorial in his hand. The contents of the memorial made him frown deeply. "Your Majesty, is there still no news from His Royal Highness?" Eunuch Chao could not help but ask. "Yes, it's been a month. There's no news at all." Sichuan Emperor closed the memorial and rubbed his eyes. His face was a little tired. He looked at the dark night sky outside with a heavy heart. Not knowing whether Su was dead or alive was like a thorn in his heart. It was very uncomfortable. "Do you think he's hiding because he knows my intentions?" Sichuan Emperor suddenly asked. "This. I don't know." Eunuch Chao lowered his head and said. Eunuch Chao did not dare to say more. He knew that His Majesty was in a bad mood at this time. It was better for him not to provoke His Majesty. Suddenly, he heard a sigh above his head. Eunuch Chao became even more cautious with his words and actions. In another palace, Xiao Ho reclined on the couch with a letter in his hand. Not knowing whether he's dead or alive. His voice was full of sarcasm. "Master, we still can't find the whereabouts of the King of England." The man in black knelt and said in shame. "If we find his body, it proves that he's really dead. But after he was injured, he seemed to have disappeared." Xiao Ho smiled evilly. The letter in his hand turned into ashes. "We can only say that he's hiding somewhere to heal." Then what should this subordinate do? "There's no cure for the snake's kiss poison, but I believe that he's tough. Pass down the order to expand the search area. Don't just limit it to Sichuan." "Yes." Xiao Ho sneered. Sichuan was very big, but it was also very dangerous. Maybe he didn't stay in Sichuan. Otherwise, with so many people looking for him, how could they not find him? Chapter 374. Chu Qingyan lightly knocked on his door. Just as she retracted her hand, she heard his voice. She did not hesitate to open the door. "Big Ice Cube, you were looking for me." Chu Qingyan turned to close the door and also closed the cold wind outside. She slowly walked in front of him. "Yes." Xiao Su glanced at her and pointed at her. Chu Qingyan looked in the direction of his finger. She saw a black cloth covering something lying on the table. What was this? Such a familiar feeling. She walked over and lifted the black cloth. A brand new guqin appeared in front of her eyes. This is... She was at a loss. She did not understand the Big Ice Cube's intentions. Did he want her to help him identify the guqin? How is it? Xiao Su looked at her shocked face and was a bit displeased. Shouldn't she be happy? Chu Qingyan heard this. As expected, he wanted her to help him identify it. But she did not know how to identify the guqin at all. She could only reach out and touch the body of the guqin. She coughed a few times and said, "I think it's not bad. At least it's very comfortable to touch." Xiao Su's expression softened when he heard this. This was made from the best red sandalwood. In this world, other than the flowing water guqin and the Gaoshan guqin, there was no third guqin that could compare to it. "You know how to play?" Xiao Su asked. "I don't know." How could she know this? In the modern era, this kind of guqin had to be specially registered, but she had never thought of developing in the direction of a talented girl. She had transmigrated and her family was too poor. Even though her mother was a famous talented girl in the capital, she did not have the money to buy a guqin and could not teach her. "Very good, this king will teach you." Xiao Su stood up and walked towards her. Chu Qingyan's fingers had just touched the strings of the zither when she was shocked by his words. The zither strings made a low, raspy sound as she touched them. Why was it good that she did not know how to play the guqin? More importantly, why did the big ice cube suddenly want to teach her how to play the guqin? This was not scientific. But by the time she reacted, she was already sitting on a chair, and Big Ice Cube was sitting beside her. His large hand held her hand and placed it on the strings of the zither. His voice was low as he taught her carefully. "Understood?" Xiao Su asked her after he finished speaking, but seeing her absent-minded look, he couldn't help but raise his hand and give her a chestnut. "Be serious." It was only then that Chu Qingyan calmed herself down and concentrated on playing the zither under his guidance. 2 hours later, Chu Qingyan was so tired that she was about to lie down. She looked at her swollen fingers and couldn't help but beg for mercy. "Big Ice Cube, since I'm a beginner, let me go first." The person sitting at the table drinking tea heard her and waved at her. "Come here." Chu Qingyan felt as if she had been granted amnesty and immediately walked towards him. Xiao Su took the ointment from the table, held her finger, and carefully applied the ointment. Chu Qingyan originally wanted to ask him why he suddenly wanted to teach her how to play the zither, but when the words came out of her mouth, she didn't ask, because the big ice cube seriously helping her apply the medicine was really beautiful. Although it wasn't his real appearance, she couldn't help but feel that it was beautiful. "You don't have to learn the zither from Miss Cheng in the future." Chu Qingyan was enjoying the cool and comfortable feeling of the ointment when she suddenly heard the big ice cube say this. "Learn the zither from Sister Yen Luo?" Only then did she recall that when Huo Ling had reported her whereabouts today, he had said that he was learning the zither from Sister Yen Luo. No wonder the big ice cube suddenly wanted to teach her. However, was there a difference between him and Sister Yen Luo? "Oh," she answered in puzzlement. Although she was full of doubts, an obedient child would get candy, so she didn't ask any more questions. After applying the ointment, the swelling will subside in a while. Xiao Su retracted his hand and spoke indifferently. "Oh, Big Ice Cube, I didn't expect you to know how to play the zither. You've never mentioned it before." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "There's nothing to say." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Was it strange to know how to play the zither? Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. He made it sound like it was necessary for everyone. She hated straight-A students the most. "Take this zither with you and bring it back tomorrow." Xiao Su waved at her, indicating that she could go back and rest. What the hell? Was she still going to practice the zither tomorrow? Xiao Su ignored Chu Qingyan's shocked expression. "Wait, aren't you going to practice the zither tomorrow? Just leave it here first. It's troublesome to bring it back." She knew that it was hard to change the big ice cube's mind, so she didn't make any last-ditch attempts. However, she couldn't figure out why he wanted to take the zither away. "You can familiarize yourself with the music when you bring it back." Besides, he raised his eyebrows and looked at her with a matter-of-fact expression. "If you don't keep your zither, who will help you?" After a while, Chu Qingyan stood outside the door, hugging the seemingly heavy but actually light zither. She felt that she had yet to recover from the shock of what had just happened. She seemed to have accidentally accepted the big ice cube's gift. He was the one whose birthday was coming up, not hers. After Chu Qingyan left, Xiaosu poured himself a glass of water and took a sip. An unknown emotion gradually appeared in his eyes. He should be the one teaching her. He didn't need to borrow others' hands. The next day, Chu Qingyan accompanied Xiaosu for breakfast as usual. Everything was normal. But for some reason, Xiaosu felt that the atmosphere was a bit strange. However, he saw that the little girl was as obedient as usual and thought that he was imagining things. Big Ice Cube, can I ask you for a favor today? Chu Qingyan suddenly asked him halfway through the meal. What is it? Xiaosu drank his soup without moving. Promise me first. Chu Qingyan leaned on the table and said with sparkling eyes. Xiaosu glanced at her. If you don't want to say it, then don't talk about it. Okay, you're not cute at all. Chu Qingyan muttered. Xiaosu's mouth twitched. Can you move the morning piano practice to the afternoon? She blinked and asked. What's the reason? Xiaosu looked at her and raised his eyebrows. I wanted to talk to Sister Yan Luo about what kind of clothes a girl should wear this morning. Chu Qingyan continued to blink her lashes. His little girl had reached the age where she needed to dress up, so he didn't think much of it and let her go. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief when she stepped out of the door. She had gone through so much trouble to get out, and she had to make use of the time to familiarize herself with the program a few more times with Yan Luo. To prevent Big Ice Cube from discovering them, they had to do it secretly. Soon, it was time for piano practice. Xiaosu had stopped to reprimand her more than 3 times. Why are you not in the right state today? Xiaosu caught her absent-minded look again. He got up and returned to the couch with an inquisitive look on his face. I'm nervous. Chu Qingyan coughed softly. Nervous? What's there to be nervous about? Xiaosu frowned. Was he too fierce? Little Princess Consort, everything is ready. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door and a voice sounded. Nervous about what's next? When Chu Qingyan heard the voice outside, she immediately stood up from the chair and ran to him. Night had fallen and the fun was about to begin. Chapter 375. What? Before Xiaosu could react, the person who had been absent-minded earlier had already run in front of him. Chu Qingyan circled behind him, intending to cover his eyes. But when her hand touched his eyes, she estimated her height and estimated that if he stood up, she would not be able to cover his eyes. Thus, she tugged at his sleeve and urged, Big Ice Cube, close your eyes first. Xiaosu did not understand. Just as he was about to take her hand and question her, she took out a silk belt from somewhere and directly covered his eyes. Seeing that he was not cooperating, Chu Qingyan whispered into his ear, Big Ice Cube, cooperate. There will be a surprise for you later. When Xiaosu heard this, his hand that had just touched the silk belt paused. In the end, he retracted his hand and did not do anything else. He did not know what the little fellow was planning to do, but he knew that she would not act rashly. In the end, he let her do as she pleased. All right, Big Ice Cube, come with me. After covering the silk belt, she tied a knot behind his hair. Chu Qingyan took his hand and indicated for him to stand up. Xiaosu only felt a warmth in his hand. A small hand like a worm wormed into his hand. He pursed his lips and stood up with her strength. At this time, the door was already opened. Chu Qingyan pulled him out of the room step by step. She did not know whether it was because of his complete trust in her, or because of the Big Ice Cube's excellent sense of direction. Although she held his hand carefully, the Big Ice Cube walked unhurriedly, as if he was not worried at all. Outside the door, the sea breeze blew. It was cold and somewhat bone-piercing. But the more they walked, the more they seemed to melt into a circle of fire. Even the wind carried some warmth. Xiaosu frowned slightly. Because he could not see, his other senses were sharper than usual. Not only the wind, but even the air was filled with a faint fragrance. He heard a slight sound, like footsteps, but also like something rising. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. No one made a sound. Xiaosu was even more curious about what the little fellow was up to. When Chu Qingyan led Xiaosu out, everyone immediately went to their positions. All the lanterns were hung up, and the ribbons danced in the wind. The entire ship seemed to be shrouded in a large hazy light. It was magnificent, and every inch of the ship was plated with golden light. If one looked down from above, from her angle, it looked like a golden bun that had been fried to a golden color. After bringing Xiaosu to the center of the deck, Chu Qingyan looked around and saw that everything was ready. Hualing and the others were also in place. She nodded slightly. Then she made a gesture to Xining, who was standing at the side. Xining understood tacitly and pulled Jean Xian to the side of the small table, waiting for her master's order. Xiaosu felt like he was in a dark place. There was a faint light in front of him, but he couldn't see it clearly. The only thing he could feel was his hand tightly holding onto hers. Suddenly he heard her voice. It was filled with joy. "Big Ice Cube, are you ready?" Before Xiaosu could answer, he felt the small hand in his hand leave his. Then, she walked behind him, brushing against his clothes. "Open sesame." With a loud chant, the brocade cloth fell down. His closed eyes slowly opened and he saw familiar faces in front of him, surrounding him. There was a furnace in the middle and the furnace was filled with flames, making everyone's faces look happy. His brows raised and his cold eyes revealed a rare trace of surprise. The surprise on his face was not hidden at all. Before he could ask what was going on, the people behind him had already walked to his side. With a slight raise of their hands, Xining and Jean Xian had already pushed a small table over. There was a wooden wheel under the table and they quickly reached the center of the crowd. On the table, there was a white thing with a candle on it. The light from the candle was dazzling. "This is..." Xiaosu revealed a look of confusion. He only heard a delicate and gentle voice ring out beside his ear, "Big Ice Cube, you forgot, today is your birthday." With that said, the rows of Shaolai cavalry knelt down and spoke in unison. "I wish Master a long and peaceful life, and may the stars shine brightly throughout the year." The sound shook the surface of the sea and was deafening. The people on the deck, other than Xiaosu and Chu Qingyan, were either bent over or kneeling down. In the clear night, the moonlight shone down on the surface of the sea. It was peaceful. Xiaosu was startled. He had already forgotten when his birthday was. It seemed like he had not celebrated his birthday for many years. He could not remember the last birthday in his memory. It was just that he had never thought that he would welcome his 20th birthday in such a manner. "Big Ice Cube, happy birthday. In the past 20 years, we were not able to participate, but in the next 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, we will be with you." After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she took his hand and brought him forward to the small table. "This is a wishing candle. Big Ice Cube, you can close your eyes and wish for anything. It will be very effective." She let go of his hand and looked at him with a smile. Xiaosu turned his head to look at her and then looked at the people who had already stood up. His eyes became slightly warm and he closed his eyes. It was as if there was a heat in his chest that had nowhere to vent. It quickly spread to his limbs and warmed his entire body. Son-in-law, hurry up and make a wish. Father wants this big bun." Father Chu jumped out and pointed at the table as if he would drool if he continued speaking. "Father, this is not a big bun. It's a cake. A birthday cake." Chu Qingyan corrected him. A good name had suddenly become tacky. Father Chu chuckled. "It's all food. Son-in-law, hurry up." It was clearly a very nice scene. Why did it run away when her father opened his mouth? But she was so focused on talking to her father that she did not know if Big Ice Cube had made a wish. When she turned her head, she saw that he had waved his hand and extinguished the candles on the cake. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Indeed, people who knew martial arts were different. Raising his hand was faster than blowing with his mouth. "We can eat the big bun now." Father Chu cheered. Chu Qingyan could not help but laugh when she heard this. And because of this, everyone gathered around the small table, wanting to try this novel thing. The atmosphere became lively all of a sudden. Chu Qingyan looked away from the cake and then raised her head. However, she met the warm gaze of the person in front of her. Facing the moonlight, it was like a pool of stars. "Big Ice Cube, I even prepared longevity noodles for you." She knew that the ancients liked to eat noodles on their birthdays, so she had ordered the chef to make a bowl. She took the noodles from the table and turned to pass it to him. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow in front of him who was smiling sincerely with curved eyebrows and eyes. His heart seemed to have been hit by something. His life had always been like this. It was dull and tasteless, and there had never been any accidents. But ever since he met her, there were accidents everywhere. Chapter 376. Seeing that Big Ice Cube didn't react, Chu Qingyan hesitated for a moment. Finally, she smiled and picked up her chopsticks. She picked up a noodle and brought it in front of him. She said cheerfully, "Big Ice Cube, you're not allowed to break it. This means longevity." Looking at the noodle in front of him, he subconsciously opened his mouth, and the warm noodle entered his mouth. When he came back to his senses, he met her sparkling and crafty eyes. "You're not allowed to break it. It has to last for a long, long time." Chu Qingyan immediately shouted when she saw that he didn't move. Xiao Su laughed. When the noodle was finished, Chu Qingyan put down her sore hands. Sigh, although she was now much taller than her peers, standing in front of him, she was still very small. This situation had to be changed. She silently said in her heart. But many years later, when she grew taller, she wanted to cry but had no tears. Why was she taller than the average girl? She surpassed countless men. But fortunately, when she stood in front of Big Ice Cube, she just happened to reach his shoulder. She could lean her head on his shoulder. This height difference was just right. Everyone who was eating the cake was dumbstruck when they saw this scene. This was the first time they saw their master being fed by someone. And so cooperative. Their knowledge was refreshed. Also, "Master, can you not smile so gently? Your subordinates can't take it." Xiao Su seemed to feel his subordinates' fervent gazes. He lowered his head and coughed lightly. "Why do you suddenly want to celebrate this prince's birthday?" Chu Qingyan clasped her hands in front of her. When she heard his question, a bright smile flashed through her eyes. "It's not sudden. It's been planned for a long time." He raised his brows. The person in front of him was smiling slyly like a little fox. He couldn't help but smile as well. "Oh. When I left Sichuan, I knew your birthday. I calculated that I should have arrived in Jiang Kingdom by then, but I didn't expect to be detained in Junlan. I thought that I would celebrate your birthday in Junlan, but I didn't expect to be detained in this sea area." Chu Qingyan exhaled and turned to face the sea with a smile. "Although the world is unpredictable, fortunately, I can still help you celebrate your birthday. The world is vast, the water meets the sky, the night pearl, and the big ice block. Do you like it?" Hearing her words, he couldn't help but shift his gaze to the surface of the sea. The ripples were like the lake in his heart. He didn't answer her directly, but raised his hand to stroke her long hair. At this moment, his state of mind was calm and at ease. Not hearing his answer, Chu Qingyan was not disappointed, because she knew him well. He was not a person who would show his emotions on his face. "Big ice block, if you think that's all for today's birthday, then you're wrong. The best part is yet to come." Chu Qingyan suddenly spoke and clapped her hands lightly. The people who were still gathered immediately dispersed and stood behind the tables and chairs. The deck in the middle was empty. Xiao Su turned to look at the crowd and saw that there were long tables in front of them. There were all kinds of delicacies on the tables. It was obvious that these things had been prepared. Otherwise, how could there be such ingredients in this vast sea? It was just as she said. They had been planning this for a long time. Big ice block, there's a program coming up. She pulled him to the seat in the middle and said with a smile. Xiao Su didn't ask her what the program was, because with her personality, she wouldn't tell him. Once he sat down, the crowd dared to sit down. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands. Jin Xian and Hualing moved a table and chairs to the deck. Then, they saw Cheng Yenluo walk to a chair with a guqin and sit down. Cheng Yenluo put down the guqin and adjusted the strings. Then, she raised her head and nodded at Chu Qingyan. When Chu Qingyan saw that everything was ready, she turned to look at Xiao Su. Her gaze swept over the crowd, and she said with a smile, "How can we let down such a beautiful occasion? Qingyan is not talented, but I'm willing to liven things up with a sword dance." As soon as she finished speaking, not only Xiao Su, but everyone else revealed a surprised expression. When did this little girl learn how to wield a sword? Xiao Su watched as she took the long sword from the servant's hand. Her movements were practiced, and it didn't seem like she was a beginner. Although Turan had instructed her for a period of time before, based on her personality, she should have forgotten long ago. He didn't expect to see her wield a sword again today. No, when they were in the princess residence, she also brought a sword to the courtyard to save him. Xiao Su suddenly felt that he might have missed something during this period of time. Just as he was deep in thought, the sound of the guqin rang out and interrupted his thoughts. The person standing upright with the sword in her hand stepped to the beat and waved the sword in her hand. At this moment, Xiao Su noticed that her clothes today were different from usual. She wore a tight-fitting white tunic with a bright red coat draped over it. A black woven belt was fastened around her waist, with tassels hanging down and swaying with her movements. Her long hair was tied up high and pinned with a wooden hairpin. Her figure was slender, and her movements were nimble. Her face exuded confidence and seriousness. Inverted scallion, Kai Kai's dance is good, right? Father Chu came over with a chicken leg in his mouth, looking proud of himself. Xiao Su fixed his gaze on her body. She twisted and turned, rose and fell, flew high in the air, spread her wings, and soared high. Every movement was just right, and combined with the grace of a dance. Her slender wrist softened the fierceness of her sword moves, and the sword in her hand shone like white silk in the dark night. Her sword moves and dance steps were seamlessly integrated. It was obvious that it would take at least half a month for her to reach such a level of beauty. Although his son-in-law didn't answer, the concentration on his face couldn't lie. Father Chu took another bite of his chicken leg and said, "Son-in-law, Kai Kai has been preparing for your birthday for a long time. I can see that she has put a lot of effort into you. You can't let her down in the future." Xiao Su frowned slightly. "I won't. As long as he was around, she would be safe under his wings and live the life she wanted." The sound of the guqin was sometimes slow and sometimes fast. Chu Qingyan's movements also changed according to the rhythm. She was fully focused on every move, and every step was light and steady. Cheng Yenluo looked at the person on the deck and smiled. Although she was still young, she had the potential to bring disaster to the country when she grew up. She was suddenly curious. 5 years later, when the little girl came of age, how magnificent would she be? She couldn't wait to see it. Cheng Yenluo hadn't stopped smiling when she met the gaze of the person opposite her. He seemed to be reminiscing about something. She looked away, but her fingers didn't stop playing the strings of the guqin. However, the smile on her face had disappeared. She remembered how the two of them used to play the guqin together, thinking that one day they would be able to harmonize. Unfortunately, life was unpredictable, and life was unpredictable. The song ended. The dance ended. Chu Qingyan looked up at the person in front of her. She didn't bother to wipe the sweat off her forehead. She put away her sword and bowed. She stood tall and straight, and her voice was playful and cute. Big Ice Cube, I wish you every day of your life. This person's words were like a stone thrown into the lake of his heart. Chapter 377. Every year this day, every year this day. Xiao Su was in a bit of a daze. It seemed like these 20 years had just started from this moment. But when he thought of this trip, the trembling in his heart disappeared. If the snake's kiss poison could not be cured, then the beginning would be the end. But this was also good. It was better than ending before it even started. After Chu Qingyan's sword dance ended, the atmosphere reached a climax. Young Princess Consort, when did you secretly practice swordsmanship behind our backs? How come this subordinate didn't know? Mu Ling held a wine cup with a relaxed expression as she teased her. Behind your back, of course it's to not let you know. Chu Qingyan replied confidently. She handed the sword to Jean Xian and clapped her hands as she walked to the table. Huo Ling and Turan smiled on the side without saying a word. Seeing them like this, Kong Ling understood. I say, did the two of you already know about this? Huo Ling crossed her arms and leaned against the railing. She held a whip in her hand and tapped it against her palm. She smiled when she heard this. We are in charge of patrolling. How could we not know when a living person is practicing martial arts right under our noses? Then again, young Princess Consort's martial arts were taught by Turan. Everyone revealed an expression of understanding. Young Princess Consort is naturally intelligent. This subordinate did not give her any pointers and relied on her own efforts. Turan said to his master. Actually, to be honest, he did not spend much time teaching her. He was busy with work and it was always him demonstrating and young Princess Consort learning. He did not think young Princess Consort would persist or have any accomplishments, but seeing her today, it was beyond his expectations. Because young Princess Consort's sword dance was integrated with the two sets of swordsmanship he had taught her before. There were basically no patterns in the moves and they were clean killing moves. But when she linked them together, they became moves that were soft but firm. The killing intent did not decrease and there was more of a woman's gentleness. He had to admit that young Princess Consort had a talent for martial arts. Turan was used to being realistic and his words were always straightforward. But hearing him affirm her, Chu Qingyan was still a bit surprised, but more than that, she was happy. As for Xiao Su, he felt more gratified. Big Ice Cube, I didn't embarrass you. She gathered her coat and sat down beside him, looking at him expectantly. In fact, no one's affirmation could compare to what she wanted to hear from the person she wanted to hear the most. For so many days, she had endured the cold wind and gritted her teeth to practice martial arts. Other than wanting to prove that she could really do it, she also wanted to tell him that she was not a sparrow. She was also a young eagle, an eagle that could spread its wings and soar high. These past few days, you've been hiding it from this prince because you've been practicing martial arts? Xiao Su looked at her slightly flushed cheeks from practicing the sword and asked in an ambiguous manner. Chu Qingyan nodded, but then shook her head. I always practice martial arts in the morning. When you woke up and I hid it from you, I was preparing the cake and sword dance. You were actually lying when you sparred with Miss Cheng. Xiao Su remembered how serious she looked when she was lying. It could be said that he had almost been fooled by her. She rubbed her nose and smiled. If I didn't lie to you, there wouldn't be a surprise. When I touched the zither, you were the one who taught me. At that time, didn't my clothes smell burnt? That was because I didn't control the heat properly and burned the cake. Seeing her stick out her tongue in embarrassment, Xiao Su could imagine her being busy in the kitchen. For his birthday, she worked hard in a place he couldn't see, just to give him an unforgettable birthday. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved. Your merits offset your demerits, so this king won't pursue the matter of you lying. Xiao Su looked at her small face. His voice was calm, but there was a soft light in his eyes. Chu Qingyan was stunned. That's not right. According to the script, the big ice cube should be very happy and feel that she did a good job. He should be very moved. But why did it become her merits offsetting her demerits? This scene was clearly not right. But when she thought about it, with the big ice cube's personality, would he be happy? Moved? That's impossible. Big ice cube, there's still hard work. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but pout. The little fellow's little face fell. Xiao Su curved his lips. It's already offset. Oh whoa, so petty. But she didn't think about why she did so much. At most, she just wanted to make the big ice cube happy. He had never had a smooth sailing life. He had achieved success and fame, but now he had to hide from place to place. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. When she thought of this, Chu Qingyan smiled again. She reached out to pour him a cup of tea. Big ice cube, although you can't drink at this time, drinking tea is not bad. This is authentic Longjing tea. I bought it in Junlan town. I was in a rush that day, otherwise I would have bought more. The tea filled the teacup, and the aroma instantly filled the air. In the air, a faint mist filled the air. Through the fragrant mist, Xiao Su looked at the person who was seriously pouring tea for him with lowered eyes. It seemed that the little fellow had grown up a lot. Along the way, she was constantly growing. He didn't notice it when they were together every day, but when he looked carefully, he could see it. Everyone must not have enjoyed the little princess sword dance. Come, I, Huo Ling, will also show everyone a whip dance. At this time, Huo Ling walked onto the open space with a whip. He was in high spirits. He drank a bit of wine and his face was a bit red, but it made him look even more handsome. As soon as his voice fell, the whip came out. It was like a snake, nimbly changing its shape. Chu Qingyan sighed in surprise. I always thought that Huo Ling was best at using the sword, but I never thought that he would be so good at using the whip. Xiao Su followed her gaze and looked at the person wantonly dancing in the air. Then he looked at the good men who were sitting, leaning, or clapping their hands. His eyes were a bit complicated. For so many years, they had followed him everywhere and fought without rest. Every day, their strings were stretched taut. Now, at this time, they were living a bit like him. The whip is not good for close combat. Huo Ling only uses it as a pastime. At this time, Ethereal interjected. He held a wine jug in his hand and shook it before drinking. He was a bit different from the elegant young master she first met. He was more carefree and unrestrained. Actually, Ethereal is not only good at medicine, he's also very good at playing the flute. It's just that I haven't heard him play for many years. At this time, Mu Ling irresponsibly revealed. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She immediately turned to ask Ethereal, really? Do you want to play a song? She hadn't forgotten the song Ethereal played with the bamboo leaves that night. Although it was sad, it was very moving. When Ethereal heard this, he subconsciously glanced at Qingyan Luo, who was drinking soup not far away. He was a bit hesitant. Chu Qingyan didn't miss his glance. She rolled her eyes and immediately waved at Ethereal. Sister Yan Luo, would you do me the honor of playing a song with Ethereal's zither and flute? Chapter 378. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd fell silent. Then, deafening cheers erupted. Ethereal, Miss Cheng, give us a performance. Give us a performance, give us a performance. 1, 2, quick, quick. 1, 2, 3, quick, quick, quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've been waiting so long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we've been waiting so long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, how much longer do we have to wait? Chu Qingyan sang along to the beat, chanting the same slogan they used during their military training. The cavalrymen found it amusing and joined in the chanting. Qingyan Luo had wanted to ignore them, but she hadn't expected such a commotion. Although she was reluctant, she couldn't back down. All right, she agreed helplessly and stood up with the zither in her arms. Ethereal's heart skipped a beat. He thought she would reject him. After all, he had drawn a clear line between them. Cheng Yenluo put down the zither and looked up at him. Her expression was cold, without the kindness in her eyes. She asked, "Which song do you want to play?" Ethereal snapped out of his daze. He felt a stabbing pain in his heart when he saw her treating him like a stranger. He frowned and walked to the empty space. He didn't make a decision immediately, but said, "You pick the tune. I'll follow along." Hearing that, Cheng Yenluo snorted coldly in her heart. Did he think that he knew every single one of her songs? Would anyone change over the past 6 years? Only a fool would remain the same. However, she had to consider the occasion. After all, it was Xiaosu's birthday. It wouldn't be appropriate if she messed it up. Otherwise, she really wanted to play Breaking Up With You. Cheng Yenluo nodded. She raised her hand and plucked the strings of the zither. A crisp and beautiful melody flowed out from the strings. Ethereal wasn't surprised. This was the song she played, Life's Bliss. The jade flute was already at his fingertips. After recognizing her song, Ethereal brought the jade flute close to his lips and began to play. The combination of the zither and flute, one in green, one in white, one in bright, one in elegant, one sitting, one standing, they became a beautiful sight on the vast sea. A perfect match. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but exclaim softly. When these words reached the two people's ears, one was startled and the other was helpless. The sound of the zither and the flute was her most beautiful memory in those 4 years. Now, it had become the most laughable mockery. Let everything go with the wind. It's fine as long as you have a peaceful and happy life. You don't have to force anything else. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but drool as she said, "I feel that women who can play the guqin are all very powerful. If you study hard, it's not impossible." Hearing her muttering to herself, Xiaosu hesitated in his heart, but still spoke up to encourage her. Although it was said that the rod produced a filial son, occasionally, he could not be too strict. Encouraging her more would be beneficial to her growth. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly had the urge to cry. She raised her hand and looked at her fingertips. If she continued to practice, her fingers would be crippled. "My hand can hold the sword. As for the zither and painting, let's forget about it, all right?" Chu Qingyan discussed with him. Xiaosu shook his head and said without any room for discussion, "This prince has already given the zither away, so there's no reason to take it back. You should study hard. It's not a loss to have an extra skill." Hearing this, a few drops of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. Chu Qingyan persisted, "Then what if I take good care of the zither?" "No, you have to make the best use of it." Xiaosu rubbed his chin after saying this. After thinking for a while, he said, "After your reminder, this prince feels that since you're talented and not bad at martial arts, then you should be good in other aspects as well. Why don't you learn the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting?" Cold sweat poured down. This was the rhythm of wanting her life. "Can you give me a discount? What do you think?" I don't think so." Chu Qingyan answered her own question. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Xiaosu felt that during this period of time, seeing the little rascal's deflated face, his mood was inexplicably good. After the zither and flute were played together, the others were eager to try. Some were playing drunken boxing, while others were fighting. The scene was very lively. Today, she had been busy setting up the entire birthday banquet and controlling the backstage. She had also performed the sword dance, so she had used up too much energy. Now that her stomach was empty, she ate a few mouthfuls of rice. Looking at the braised crabs and spicy sesame prawns on the table, she was about to drool. It was a pity that peeling the shells was too troublesome, so she could only eat until she was full. Just as she was engrossed in eating, a peeled prawn landed in her bowl. That intact prawn meat was sparkling and delicious. She could tell that the person who peeled the shell had nimble fingers. She glared at the prawn, then raised her head to look at the person sitting at the side. She saw him slowly twist the prawn's head, remove the prawn's legs, and with a flip of his fingers, the shell was no longer changed. Another intact prawn meat landed in her bowl. After peeling several prawns in a row, Xiao Su took a cloth from the side and wiped the oil and debris on his fingers. Looking up, he saw that she was still staring at him in a daze. Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. If you don't eat it, it will get cold. Chu Qingyan came back to her senses and immediately picked up the prawn meat and stuffed it into her mouth. At this moment, she was shocked. With the Big Ice Cube's mysophobia, he basically didn't touch prawns or crabs. But in this sea, the most common ingredients were prawns and crabs. The last time she saw him, he basically didn't touch them. When she asked him, he said that it was troublesome. But now, because of her gaze, he personally peeled them for her. She was simply too touched. She bit into the prawn meat and looked at the person peeling the crab meat for her. She felt that there was nothing more delicious in her mouth. After a long time, when he was used to doing these things and she was also used to enjoying it, she curiously asked about the first time he peeled the shell. Was it because you were moved by me at that time? Admit it honestly. You're thinking too much. It's just that you were too drooling when you looked at those dishes. This prince couldn't stand it. She pursed her lips. So stubborn. Halfway through the banquet, Chu Yunqing's father suddenly appeared. Chu Qingyan saw her father standing in the middle of the boat while she was eating. She suddenly had a bad feeling. What was her father doing? Performing a show. More importantly, would he know how to do it? The moment Chu Yunqing's father went on stage, he immediately erupted in applause. Although the fire spirit, Turin, and the wood spirit, Ethereal, were usually bullied by him, they weren't stingy with their applause at this time. Cool, quiet. Chu Yunqing's father raised his hand in a dignified manner, indicating for everyone to quiet down. Chu Qingyan felt that her father was quite cool like this. Although she was a bit worried that he would make a mistake again, she couldn't help staring at him on stage. Today, I'll perform a show for you. You definitely haven't seen this show before. Chu Yunqing's father said with a serious expression. What show? Stop keeping us in suspense. Huo Ling shouted. Chu Yunqing's father seriously looked at Huo Ling. Be serious, this is a serious show. Huo Ling immediately raised his hands in surrender. All right, please continue. The show I'm going to perform is... Chu Yunqing's father said this before laughing. It's magic. Chapter 379. Everyone was stunned by Mr. Chu's words. Magic? What the hell was that? Playing a musical instrument? Or practicing swordsmanship? Chu Qingyan was probably the only one who understood what he was saying. She covered her eyes. Oh my god, Dad, don't tell me you're... Then, alright, I'm going to perform a magic trick now. It's called Great Transformation. Mr. Chu said mysteriously. Chu Qingyan sighed. Just as she thought. What's Great Transformation? Mu Ling's curiosity was piqued. Mr. Chu explained, it's making a person disappear. Mr. Chu raised his hand. I'm going to start now. Am I standing here perfectly fine? I'm going to disappear in a while. But before I start, you have to close your eyes and keep silent for 10 seconds. Then, open your eyes again. You can't see me when you open your eyes. Then, close your eyes for another 10 seconds and I'll appear. Everyone was excited to watch the show, but after hearing Mr. Chu's explanation, they all felt uncomfortable. Are you sure this isn't hide and seek but a magic trick? However, no one said anything because Chu Machin's father had already begun to urge everyone. Chu Qingyan watched as everyone closed their eyes. Then, her father flew around like a fly and hid under a small table covered with a tablecloth. Then, everyone cooperated and opened their eyes. Ah, he's gone. How magical. Quick, quick, quick. Close your eyes and see if old Master Chu will appear. Chu Qingyan facepalmed. These people were too cooperative with her father's nonsense, she was speechless. Waha, I'm out. Isn't it awesome? Mr. Chu stood proudly in front of everyone. As soon as he finished speaking, thunderous applause rang out. Your father is very good. Xiao Su picked up his teacup and looked at the people on the stage through the smoke. Chu Qingyan thought that Big Ice Cube would complain that her father was messing around. She didn't expect to hear such an evaluation from him. Warmth filled her heart. She turned to look at her father on the stage. His proud look was really cute. In her eyes, no matter what her father became, he would always be her closest family. There was nothing in this world that was stronger than blood ties. Kai Kai, come, let's put on another show. Chu Qian's father was in high spirits and immediately pulled his daughter into the act. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised when her name was called. She stood up blankly and asked, Dad, what are you going to perform? Sing. Mr. Chu said matter-of-factly. Chu Qingyan slapped her forehead. Daddy was really too much tonight. However, she didn't want to spoil her father's mood. Besides, the main purpose of tonight was to be lively and happy. If she could make everyone laugh after losing face, it would be worth it. Little girl, hurry up, don't dilly-dally. Cheng Yenluo hadn't forgotten about her suggestion just now. It reminded her of her past and she couldn't help but kick up a fuss. Go ahead. Xiao Su didn't stop her. Instead, he pushed her out. He remembered that the little girl seemed to be quite good at singing. Chu Qingyan turned around and glared at him. She looked around and saw that everyone was looking at her expectantly. She had no choice but to resign herself to fate and walk towards her father. When she reached her father, Chu Qingyan looked up and asked, Dad, what song do you want to sing? When she was in Mao Village, she was afraid that her father would run around and cause trouble for her mother. She had taught him many songs, but they were all nursery rhymes. Her father wouldn't want to sing nursery rhymes, right? She was a little embarrassed to sing nursery rhymes in front of so many people at her age. How about Ode to Joy? Mr. Chu whispered to her. Chu Qingyan felt that this was the most appropriate song among all the ones she had taught him. It was worth it to teach him so much. She nodded to show that she had no problem with it. Chu Qingyan coughed lightly. She felt pressured when she saw so many pairs of eyes staring at her. After clearing her throat, Chu Qingyan began to sing. Goddess of joy, holy and beautiful. Brilliant light shines on the earth. Her light voice was like a dragonfly spreading its wings and flying with the wind. It made people see the vitality of spring and summer in this cold winter. Mr. Chu continued to sing. Our hearts are full of passion, coming to your holy temple. Your strength can make people erase all traces. Mr. Chu's voice was slightly lower, but the man's voice was full of power. It filled people with enthusiasm. When they reached this point, the two of them looked at each other and sang together. Under your radiance, people unite as brothers, your strength can make people erase all traces. Under your radiance, people unite as brothers. The combination of soft and hard forces made people feel endless strength and firm belief. It was as if they were persistent in their hardships and believed that the light would come sooner or later. At this point, the song should have ended. However, at some point, Cheng Yenluo's zither and ethereal flute sounded. They were playing the song, Ode to Joy. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Someone could really compose a song after listening to it once. Therefore, Chu Qingyan and Mr. Chu didn't stop. Instead, they continued to sing. Xiao Su held his teacup and looked at the stage. He didn't touch the tea in his cup for a long time. It was as if his whole body was frozen. This song was cheerful and light. With the accompaniment of the zither and flute, it showed the glory of the song itself. This was an inspirational song that made people not forget their thoughts. In their era, proper women and men would not sing in public. That was generally assumed to be reserved for the lowly group of people who were known as singers. But in the eyes of Xiao Lai-chi, in the eyes of Xiao Su, these rules were nothing to them. They were people who had been through a lot on the battlefield. What kind of things had they not experienced? They had seen a lot and were more open-minded than those who stuck to the rules. The rules of the world were meant to be broken. Therefore, when the young Princess Consort and Old Master Chu sang this song, they resonated in their hearts. After so many years of wandering between life and death, they had almost died many times. But if it weren't for the trust in their masters and the persistence of their beliefs, they wouldn't have come to this point. The same was true for their deceased comrades. After singing and playing twice, they stopped. The crowd clapped their hands, still wanting more. When Qing Yanluo put away her zither, she glared at the person who was putting away his jade flute. Why did he join in the accompaniment when she asked for it? Ethereal rubbed his nose. He didn't expect Xiaoyan to join in the accompaniment. It could be said that the two of them subconsciously played their instruments at the same time. Dan Yang, did your husband sing well? Mr. Chu ran to his wife as soon as he got off the stage. Chu Qingyan smiled. She could vaguely hear her mother saying, very good, very good. She couldn't help but walk to Big Ice Cube. She tilted her head and asked, Big Ice Cube, how was my singing? It was just a casual question, but her eyes met his serious and bright eyes. Her pupils shrank slightly. She was looking forward to what he would say. Chapter 380. Chu Qingyan held her breath, waiting for him to speak. Even though she knew that Big Ice Block was used to teasing her, she didn't know if he would tease her again this time. But she was still looking forward to it. You sang well. His black eyes had traces of a smile, as if he had seen through her thoughts. But this time, he didn't ignore her expectations. You're good at both writing and martial arts. You've improved a lot. He couldn't always be a stick, sometimes he had to give her some candy. And this time, she really made him look at her in a new light. Really? Chu Qingyan was surprised at first, but then she was overjoyed. It's fake. Xiao Su teased. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. She knew that he was teasing her, but she was really happy tonight because she rarely received such praise from Big Ice Block. Today is a day worth celebrating. Xining, I want to drink, bring me a wine glass. Chu Qingyan was so happy that she forgot her status and waved her hand at Xining. Xining heard this and felt that something was wrong. She immediately looked at His Royal Highness and saw His Highness' deep eyes sweep over her. Xining couldn't help but shiver. She immediately lowered her head and ate her food. After a long time, she didn't see Xining bring a cup. Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw that she looked like she didn't understand anything. She was busy eating and didn't look at her eyes. Chu Qingyan thought for a bit and then looked suspiciously at the person next to her. You can't drink yet, Xiao Su said in a serious tone, if you're thirsty, drink tea. How could she become an alcoholic at such a young age? Besides, drinking was bad for her body and mind. She wasn't thirsty, okay? She just wanted to drink to liven things up. Seeing that Xining immediately brought a cup of tea after Big Ice Block spoke, he couldn't help glaring at Xining. This little girl, did she not recognize who her master was? However, since Big Ice Cube had already said so, she couldn't go against him. She could only sip her tea pitifully. However, a long time later, Chu Qingyan was extremely glad that she didn't have the chance to touch alcohol because of the ice cube. Otherwise, she would have regretted it to death. It turned out that once she finished drinking, there was a commotion on the deck. After drinking, the men became more relaxed. Moreover, men who had been through life and death situations on the battlefield did not bother about trifles. They began to sing and laugh. And at this time, Xiaosu wouldn't restrain his subordinates. After so many days, it was time for them to relax. Moreover, his subordinates all knew their limits. They knew how to control themselves, so he didn't need to worry about them. The show came to an end, but the laughter didn't stop. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Chu Qingyan remembered that she still had something important to do. Just as she was about to take out that thing from her sleeve, someone beat her to it. Son-in-law, son-in-law, Daddy has prepared a present for you. In a flash, her father appeared. Chu Qingyan withdrew her hand, amused. She had always known that her father was worried about preparing a present for Big Ice Cube. However, when she wanted to ask him later, he always had a mysterious look on his face. He had done a very good job of keeping it a secret. Now, she was also curious about what her father had prepared for her birthday. Xiaosu was also a little surprised by Chu Qingyan's father's sudden appearance, not to mention the birthday present he mentioned. Chu Qingyan saw Chu Qingyan's father take out the thing he was carrying behind his back with a happy look on his face. Dang, 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 birthday present. A snow-white piece of jade lay in Chu Qingyan's father's palm. At this time, under the light, it actually emitted a faint green light. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. She had thought that her father would bring flowers, grass, and stones because that was usually what her father did. However, when she saw that piece of white jade, Chu Qingyan's first thought was, Daddy, where did you get this jade from? Why hadn't she seen it before? Chu Qingyan's father looked at his daughter with an aggrieved expression. Kai, this is our Chu family's heirloom. Daddy didn't just randomly pick it up. Ah, Daddy, that's not what I meant. Chu Qingyan hurriedly waved her hands. She didn't suspect her father. At this time, Chu Qingyan's mother walked over. She smiled lovingly at Xiaosu and her daughter and said, This jade pendant was given to Yuanlang by an eminent monk before he went to war 10 years ago. It was said that it could bless him with safety. It was all thanks to this jade pendant that the entire army was wiped out in that battle. However, your father managed to survive after falling off a cliff. Mother thought that it might be because of this jade pendant. At this point, Chu Qingyan's mother raised her head to look at Xiaosu. After spending so much time together, she had dispelled the rumors about him being full of evil. Now, she looked at him with the gaze of an elder looking at a junior and said gently, Your Highness, now that we are giving this jade pendant to you, we hope that you will be able to survive this disaster safely. I believe that the heavens have eyes and won't let a good person suffer too many twists and turns. A woman's coming-of-age ceremony and a man's coming-of-age ceremony is an extremely solemn event. The gift is light, so I hope that your highness won't mind. After Chu Qingyan's mother finished speaking, Chu Qingyan's father nodded repeatedly. Bless you. Xiaosu looked at the two people in front of him. A warm current surged in his heart and instantly flowed through his entire body. He stretched out his hands with a solemn expression. I don't dare to refuse an elder's gift. Xiaosu is not talented and has troubled the two of you. Seeing Xiaosu take the jade pendant so seriously and carefully, Chu Qingyan's mother glanced at her daughter and suddenly revealed a gratified smile. Your Highness, in the future, my Kai will be in your care. Chu Qingyan was originally touched by this scene, but when her mother suddenly said this, she did not know how to react. Then, she heard Big Ice Cube's reply. Xiaosu will treat her well, Xiaosu replied seriously. Chu Qingyan's mother nodded and left with her husband, leaving the two of them some space. When Chu Qingyan's father came forward to give the birthday gift, Hualing and the others had already noticed. Then, when they heard Chu Qingyan's mother's words, they all fell silent. Chu Qingyan's father was originally a proud son of the heavens. His father's birthday should be celebrated by the royal family with the highest standards. He should receive the worship of the civil and military officials and the blessings of the emperor. But now, on this vast sea, there was no family, no title, no celebration. There was only hiding, the cold wind, and the cold moon. However, they also felt a trace of joy. At least at this time, their master had the little princess by his side and they were accompanying him. In the past 20 years, their master had never felt the care of family. Today, at least he received the most sincere blessings. The little princess's parents would also be their master's parents in the future. At this moment, they received the warmest blessings from family. Turan, what should I do? I'm moved. Hualing rubbed the non-existent tears at the corner of his eyes, but his eyes were really red. Yeah, me too. The wood spirit smiled. At this time, we should be happy for our master. Turan listened to his companion's words and suppressed the warmth in his chest as he smiled. At least this birthday, their master would no longer be alone. Chapter 381. Xiaosu looked at the jade pendant in his hand. In his position, he had seen too many rare treasures. This jade pendant could not be considered precious, and its quality was also very ordinary. But when he held it in his hand, it felt warm. He felt that he had never seen a piece of jade that suited him more than this. Chu Qingyan watched as Big Ice Cube slowly closed his fingers and held the jade pendant tightly in his hand. She could not help but smile. It looked like Big Ice Cube really liked the jade pendant that his parents gave him. Suddenly, he turned around and handed the jade pendant in his hand to her. Chu Qingyan was a bit stunned. What was Big Ice Cube doing? Tie a knot, otherwise it won't be easy to wear. He put the jade pendant in her hand and said unhurriedly. Chu Qingyan finally understood his intentions. Big Ice Cube wanted to wear it on his body, but he did not have a knot. She thought that he did not like it. All right. She nodded. But after she agreed, she realized that she did not know how to tie a knot at all. But it was fine. Xining should know how to do it. She could just have her teach her when the time came. Seeing her put away the jade pendant, Xiaosu spoke again. What did you want to say to this prince just now? He remembered that she seemed to have something to say to him just now. After his reminder, Chu Qingyan finally remembered this matter. She said with a smile, Big Ice Cube, I also prepared a gift for you. Is that so? Xiaosu smiled faintly, as a trace of anticipation flashed in his deep eyes. He did not know what kind of surprise she would give him. Wait, I'll get it for you. Chu Qingyan lowered her head and was about to take out a small box from her sleeve. But right at this moment, fireworks were lit and rushed into the night sky from the four corners of the ship. Bang, 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 the fireworks bloomed in the sky one after another. The brilliant colors bloomed like flowers, making people unable to look away. It was as bright as day in an instant. It was magnificent in an instant. Chu Qingyan took out the small box and opened it. Big Ice Cube, this is the birthday gift I made for you. Xiaosu's gaze did not land on the box, but on her in front of him. Behind her was a brilliant display of fireworks, and she was like a little fairy walking out from the light. Her eyebrows were curved, and the corners of her eyes contained the entire starry sky, instantly overflowing with light. Ever since then, this scene had been imprinted in his memory, and it would never fade away. What? His thoughts drifted as he subconsciously asked. She took out the item from the box. It was a small booklet about the size of a palm. She smiled and handed the booklet to him. Take a look. Hurry up. Hearing her urging, Xiaosu took the booklet and saw two charmingly naive little people on the cover. One was standing in the wind with his hands behind his back, looking a little stern. The other was lying on the ground and seemed to be rolling around. The style of the painting was very exaggerated, unlike their ink and wash paintings. But for some reason, he had a strange feeling that the one standing was him, and the one rolling on the ground was very much like the little guy. At least, the way they were making a scene was very similar to the little guy. Under the little fellow's signal, he opened the first page. It was the daily life of the two little people. When he flipped it open again, it was also their daily life. Suddenly, his fingers paused. All the conversations and scenes inside seemed to be vivid in his mind. Seeing that Big Ice Cube had already discovered her, Chu Qingyan giggled and said, "This is a comic. I have drawn some of the interesting things in our lives using a humorous style. If you are bored, you can flip it open and take a look." She had accidentally joined a comic club in university and learned some basic drawing skills. She thought that it was just for fun, but she did not expect that it would come in handy here. By the way, if you close the booklet and flip it quickly, there will be a surprise. Although Xiao Su wasn't very interested in these kinds of small things, he still became interested when he heard her say that. He casually flipped through them, and the paintings that were still fixed suddenly came to life. The little person who looked exactly like her in the footer came alive, as if she was walking slowly with a plate of peaches, and there were small words jumping next to it. Big Ice Cube, happy 20th birthday. Every birthday in the future, you must be very happy. When he turned to the last page, the picture also disappeared. How is it? Very good, right? This can also be called an animation. Chu Qingyan proudly showed off, immersed in her own joy, and did not notice the shocked eyes of the person beside her. I like it very much. As soon as the words came out, fireworks bloomed and drowned in an instant. What did you say? Chu Qingyan did not hear clearly, and asked with her head tilted. Xiao Su slanted his lips. I won't say it twice. Stingy. Chu Qingyan grumbled, and then smiled again. Xiao Su looked at her delicate face and could not help but smile with her. Big Ice Cube, if you are unhappy in the future, you can take it out and look at it. Even if it doesn't look good, you are not allowed to dislike it. I stayed up a few nights to rush it out. In order to cherish the fruits of my labor, you are not allowed to spoil it or lose it. Hearing her solemn declaration, Xiao Su reached out and patted her head in amusement. What if I don't do it? Then I won't give you comics in the future. Chu Qingyan snorted. This punishment is a little severe. Xiao Su teased her. At this moment, she pulled on his sleeve and smiled pleasingly. Big Ice Cube, keep this comic well. In the future, I will give you a small booklet for your birthday every year. This is called a cereal, and I will give it to you until you are old. I hope that you can smile more in the future, and smile 10 years younger. That way, I can give it to you many times, and then I can give you a lot of happiness. When such words came out of her mouth, Xiao Su felt his heart soften. At this age, he should be the one to protect her, but now she was the one who kept circling around him, afraid that he would accidentally leave her. Okay. He smiled, lowered his head, and promised. Receiving his response, Chu Qingyan could not help but smile, and then pulled him to the railing to enjoy the fireworks. I bought a lot of fireworks, and then let the wood spirit improve them. They can be put on for an entire night. Chu Qingyan welcomed the sea breeze happily. Xiao Su raised his head to look at the boundless sea. The world was vast, and his heart was peaceful. There was no killing, no scheming, no scheming. This kind of day was very precious. Big Ice Cube, you will be able to see Jiangguo's good friend tomorrow. I wonder what he looks like, and if he is easy to get along with. Chu Qingyan suddenly spoke up. You don't have to worry about that. You can ignore him. Xiao Su said indifferently. Chu Qingyan was stunned. For better or worse, he is your good friend, how can you treat him like this? However, seeing that his expression was normal, Chu Qingyan did not think too much of it. She leaned on his arm and enjoyed the fireworks in the sky. The two of them stood quietly for a long time. If one looked at them from behind, they would think that they were snuggling together. However, it was indeed Chu Qingyan leaning on him. Do you want to see this prince's original appearance? Xiao Su lowered his head, wanting to ask her, but he saw that she had fallen asleep while leaning on him. He smiled, and his gaze softened. Forget it, the future is long. Chapter 382. When Hualing and the others saw the two leaning against the railing, a gratified expression appeared in their eyes. We won't go home until we're drunk tonight. Hualing raised his wine cup, planning on drinking to his heart's content. Unfortunately, as soon as he raised his cup, it was stopped by Mu Ling. We'll be in Jiang country tomorrow, so don't worry. Hualing laughed. Don't we still have Turan? It's not a problem. Turan looked at him. If you're drunk, I don't mind throwing you down to feed the fish. You really are serious. I'm just saying. Hualing rubbed his head and sighed. Everyone couldn't help laughing. There is one person who is already dead drunk. Mu Ling looked at the person on the side. Everyone followed his gaze and saw Ethereal drinking wine with his head raised. His eyes were blurred and it looked like he was already quite drunk. Since ancient times, emotions have left behind regrets. This regret will never end. Hualing was in the mood to write poetry as he shook his head in regret. Turan slapped him down. You talk too much. Turan, I'm still a Night Lord. Leave me some face. Everyone laughed heartily. Drunk today, they didn't know tomorrow's matters. It was better to enjoy today's freedom and comfort. It was deep into the night and the banquet slowly dispersed. Everyone cleaned up the messy cups and plates and took the tables and chairs away. Xiao Su stood there for a while and saw that the person beside him was still sleeping peacefully. He smiled. She could even fall asleep standing up. It seemed like she was really tired out this time. Without waking her up, Xiao Su took off his cloak and placed it over her shoulders. Then he lifted her up by the waist and walked towards her room. It was too late. If he didn't let her go back to her room, the sea breeze would be too cold and she would have a headache tomorrow. Big Ice Cube, happy birthday. He placed her on the bed and heard her mutter. Xiao Su revealed a faint smile and gently rubbed her head. I'm very happy tonight. Thank you, little fellow. He didn't like to show his emotions because he knew that a person's emotions could easily affect his own judgment and could easily be used against him. He was already used to watching everything that happened around him coldly. However, it was also because he met the little fellow that he experienced the warmth and coldness of the world, the joy of the 7 emotions. Have a good sleep. He smiled gently and stood up. If Chu Qingyan saw him now, she would probably think that she was hallucinating. She was usually so cold, but when she smiled, she looked so gentle. Unfortunately, she was already asleep and couldn't see anything. Xiao Su left the room and quietly closed the door. Perhaps, he should also make plans for the little fellow. He strode away calmly. The ship's armor, which was bustling just now, was now somewhat deserted. Hualing and the others had already left. Those who were standing guard, and those who were resting. Turan walked up to Ethereal, who was already drunk, and sighed softly. Why did you make yourself look so miserable? After he finished speaking, he was about to pull her up when he saw a dark shadow creeping up to his feet. He couldn't help but raise his head. It was Cheng Yenluo. Miss Cheng. Turan withdrew his hand and stood to the side. Turan, do you need my help? Cheng Yenluo glanced at the person leaning against the deck. Her eyes were deep, and it was impossible to tell what she was thinking. Turan smiled coldly. Miss Cheng, do you think this is fun? What? Cheng Yenluo narrowed her eyes and looked at him. She felt that he didn't mean well. If you really want to stay away from him, why did you come over at this time? If you still want to be on good terms with him, then say it clearly. Why do you have to be so ambiguous? Turan didn't like to hide his words, so he threw it at her directly. This is between me and him. You don't have the right to comment. As if someone had stepped on her tail, Cheng Yenluo was a little annoyed. Although she admitted that Turan was right about some things and she wanted to stay away from him, she couldn't help but be attracted to him. She couldn't help but pay attention to his words and actions. When she saw him dead drunk, she couldn't help but walk over. But when she opened her mouth, she realized what she was doing. The saddest thing in the world wasn't that he didn't know that you liked him, but that he couldn't help but approach you even though you knew it was impossible. Tu Ling looked at her with a faint smile. Yes, this is between the two of you. But even if the two of you are at loggerheads, outsiders like us don't feel good either. At least, the little princess consort has been trying to matchmake the two of you. Unfortunately, the two of you are always on and off, making it hard for us to see through you. Anyone with a discerning eye knows that Kongling cares about you, but you keep pushing him away. Now, outsiders like us can't stand it anymore. Can't you come out and say a few words? Cheng Yenluo was stunned. She wanted to say that it wasn't what they saw, but she didn't know how to refute him. Turin's tone was sharp. You've always only cared about your own feelings. Do you know what happened to him in the past 6 years? What happened in the past 6 years? As soon as the words left her mouth, Cheng Yenluo shut her mouth because she saw the mockery in Turin's eyes. Didn't they agree to draw a line between them? Why did she ask so stupidly? Didn't she know that the more she knew, the more she couldn't let go? She lowered her eyes and turned around. What happened in the past 6 years has nothing to do with me. Turin couldn't help but sneer. All right, since it has nothing to do with you, then let him die drunk here. Don't bother about him. In the future, if you want to know about those years, don't ask me. After saying that, Turin turned around and left without hesitation. Cheng Yenluo didn't expect that Turin would really leave her alone and no longer bother about her. She wanted to call out to him, but she couldn't. In the end, she turned her eyes to the unconscious person and smiled bitterly. Why can't I let go of you? You said you'd give up. She squatted down and looked at the person who was half sitting. In terms of looks, you're not bad. In terms of character, you're terrible. You don't keep your word. In terms of temperament, you're gentle on the surface, but you're as stubborn as a bull on the inside. You have a lot of shortcomings. Why do I always forgive and tolerate you again and again? What's so good about you? Do you deserve my treatment? Murong-ju, people say that the person who falls in love first will always be more worried about personal gains and losses. Cheng Yenluo rambled on for a long time. Then, she sat down and looked up at the night sky. The moment she looked up, she didn't see the person beside her. She slowly opened her eyes, which were full of complicated emotions. I've been tossing and turning for so many nights without any news from you. Do you know that I'm really scared? Murong-ju, if we're destined to be separated, then let's part on good terms. I don't want to experience this kind of fear again. Initially, when he heard her confession, he felt a little happy. However, the last sentence sent him to the bottom of the valley. Part on good terms. Chapter 383. It was easy to say, but it was difficult to do. Would they forget each other after helping each other in times of need? Ethereal slowly closed his eyes, his face filled with pain. Cheng Yenluo retracted her gaze and turned to look at the person beside her. It was already very late. She couldn't let him sleep like this. The sea breeze was strong, and he had just recovered. He couldn't catch another cold, or else it would be even more difficult for him to recover. Thinking of this, she stood up and wanted to seek help from the patrolling Shaolai cavalry. Unfortunately, when they saw her look, they immediately looked away and pretended not to have seen anything. Cheng Yenluo cursed silently. Could it be that these people had been instructed by the earth spirit to ignore him? Cheng Yenluo couldn't help but twitch her mouth. Forget it. Even if she had decided to distance herself from him, she couldn't leave him in the lurch. Thus, she resigned herself to fate and reached out to put one of his arms on her shoulders. Then, she used all her strength to pull him up. After he steadied himself, she slowly moved toward his room. Cheng Yenluo, who was focused on walking, didn't notice that the person leaning on her opened his eyes again. Looking at the fine beads of sweat on her forehead as she led him forward without any distractions, Kongling's heart became even more complicated. He should have woken up and left by himself, but why couldn't he bear to? It took a Herculean effort for Cheng Yenluo to send him back to his room. She put him on the bed and covered him with a blanket. Cheng Yenluo wanted to leave, but for some reason, she couldn't move her feet. She looked up at the person in front of her. His handsome face was still the same. 6 years hadn't left a mark on him. Instead, it made him even more handsome. He was already the dream boy of her junior sisters in the sect. Now, it was needless to say. 6 years could change a lot. Many things could be changed. She was slightly dazed. It was as if she had seen the two of them walking through the night on a narrow path in early summer. Even if they didn't speak, she felt that their eyes were full of words. But now, she felt that she couldn't stay any longer. This room was slowly filling with his scent. If she stayed any longer, she was afraid that her imagination would run wild again. Cheng Yenluo immediately turned around and was about to leave. However, a pair of hands grabbed her wrist. She froze. Yen, don't go. His drunken voice was a little hoarse and a little gloomy, but his simple words made it impossible for her to shake off his hand. Back then, when I told you not to leave, why did you leave? She turned her back to him and asked the question that had been in her heart for 6 years. I was on a mission. If it weren't for my master, Murongju wouldn't exist and I wouldn't have met you. I have to take care of my master's well-being. It was an emergency at that time and I didn't have time to explain. Xiao Yan, it's my fault. A slow voice sounded behind her. No, you're not wrong. Cheng Yenluo closed her eyes. What's wrong is that I like him so much that I can't even tolerate a grain of sand. After saying that, she ruthlessly pulled her wrist back from his hand. She didn't stay any longer and quickly left. Perhaps he was drunk, which was why he suddenly said those words. Maybe he's not drunk. But whether he was drunk or not was no longer important, was it? 6 years ago, you could give me up once for the sake of your responsibility and morality. 6 years later, you can give me up again. Why do I have to guard this dangerous relationship and wait foolishly for you to abandon me again? A girl's heart was too small, so small that it could only let one person go. But a girl was also very fragile. After being hurt once, she would choose not to believe it again. Seeing the figure disappear at the door, the hand that was suspended in midair weakly retracted. She had clearly told herself not to touch that impossible friendship again, but why couldn't she help it? Ethereal threw herself hard onto the bed. It would be great if she was drunk. Once she was drunk, she wouldn't know or see anything. Wouldn't that be great? It would be a mess if she couldn't cut it off. It was the sorrow of separation. In the dead of the night, loneliness would be entrenched in her heart. It was so clear that there was no way to hide. The night passed and a new day came. Chu Qingyan, who was lying on the bed, stared at the tassels on the bedside table with her eyes wide open. She was a little confused. The last memory she had of last night was watching the fireworks bloom in the night sky one by one. But why did she wake up on the bed? She tried hard to recall what had happened last night, but other than the gorgeous fireworks, there was nothing else. Then how did she return to her room? At this time, Xining walked in. When she saw that her master had woken up, she cheerfully went forward and hooked up the bed curtains. Master, they were all saying that you did a good job at the birthday banquet yesterday. It was lively and rich. I didn't expect you to be able to hold such a wonderful banquet at sea. This servant really admires you. Chu Qingyan saw that her face was about to blossom with a smile and couldn't help but laugh. I remember that you also performed very well last night. Those lanterns, ribbons, kitchen reminders, weren't they all made by you alone? Our family's Xining is becoming more and more mature, more and more like a head maidservant. Master, you're making fun of this servant again. Xining glared at her, but she quickly raised a smile. Master, did you sleep well last night? Very well, I slept all the way until dawn and didn't have any dreams. Chu Qingyan stretched and said energetically. That's good. Last night, you fell asleep standing and scared this servant. Fortunately, His Highness sent you back to your room. Xining said with a smile. It was only then that Chu Qingyan realized that Big Ice Cube was the one who had sent her back. She had thought that she was sleepwalking. Xining recalled last night and added, Master, this servant feels that His Highness is becoming more and more attentive to you, and is also becoming more and more gentle. You didn't see the way His Highness looked at you last night. It was so gentle that water could be rubbed out. Chu Qingyan raised her hand and pinched the little girl's face. Your pink little face, let me see if water can be rubbed out. Master, you're bullying me again. Xining covered her cheeks and ran far away. Chu Qingyan was laughing uncontrollably. Regarding Xining's words, she felt that Xining was exaggerating. It was good enough that the Big Ice Cube didn't treat her coldly, but he was so gentle that water could drip out. Don't be too funny, okay? After washing up, Chu Qingyan walked out of the room and saw the dock not far away. She cheered in her heart. Was that the legendary border of Jiang country? If it was, then they had arrived at Jiang country. She walked towards the Big Ice Cube's room, wanting to share this good news with him. But after taking a few steps, she saw a familiar figure on the deck and immediately dashed over. Are we reaching Jiang country? She asked as she ran. He saw the little fellow's energetic appearance and couldn't help but curve his lips. That's great. She smiled happily. Then will we be able to see your old friend? She was very curious about the Big Ice Cube's mysterious old friend. He should have already arrived at the dock. Xiao Su looked at the dock in the distance, his voice gentle. Chapter 384. Chu Qingyan looked at the harbor. Although it was only a small dock, the wood spirit said that it would arrive after lunch at the latest. The sea breeze blew. The closer it was to the Jiang kingdom, the lower the temperature and colder the wind. Chu Qingyan originally wanted to stand outside and wait for the ship to arrive, but she didn't persist for long before retreating back to her room. She stomped her feet in Xiao Su's room to remove the frost on her body. As for the person who was flipping through the book, seeing her childish behavior, he only smiled slightly and focused on the book again. When her body warmed up, Chu Qingyan turned to look at the person at the table. His features were ordinary, but when he casually leaned on the chair, it was hard to look away. Some people said that a serious woman was the most beautiful, and a serious man was the most charming. She felt that it was true. At least, the person in front of her right now was the most charming man she had ever seen. In order to not expose his identity, the Big Ice Cube hadn't worn a mask for a long time. In the past, she felt that with the mask, the two of them were separated by a layer of gauze. She couldn't guess what he was thinking. Although he changed his appearance, with the Big Ice Cube's dull personality, she still couldn't guess much, but it was better than that cold mask. She strolled over and leaned on the table to ask, I heard that wearing a mask for a long time is not good for the skin. Do you feel uncomfortable? As soon as she finished speaking, she heard a voice coming from outside the door. Don't worry, little princess. This subordinate developed this kind of human skin mask. It has good breathability and won't hurt the skin. It won't be a problem even if you wear it for a year or so. Chu Qingyan turned to look at the indifferent ethereal and raised her eyebrows slightly. She had heard about what happened last night from that little girl Xining. After a night of drinking, his complexion really was much worse. She knew that she didn't have the right to interfere in other people's affairs, so she said with a smile, I'm not worried about Ethereal's medical skills. Are you here to check on His Highness today? Ethereal nodded. There's no need to worry about Xishuan and Junlan in the climate of the Jiang kingdom. Master's body won't be able to take it. As she spoke, Ethereal walked towards her master and placed a small pillow on the table so that her master could place her hand on it to feel her pulse. After checking his pulse, Ethereal's brows relaxed. He lowered his head and said to his master, Your pulse is calm, and the poison is still under control. However, when you arrive in the Jiang Kingdom, you must pay attention to keeping warm. After all, you can't use your true qi, so your body will be weaker than usual. Xiao Su nodded. This prince understands. The two of them chatted for a while longer before Ethereal left. After listening to their conversation, Chu Qingyan looked at him thoughtfully and then walked to his closet. His daily life was usually taken care of by the 7 maidservants, including his clothes. However, Cheng Yi had been banished because of her evil intentions, and Qing Yi and Lve were not brought along. Perhaps it was because he was used to rushing to the battlefield, but he did not have any women by his side, so he did not find it inconvenient. However, he did lack people to take care of his clothes. Thus, she began to worry about his basic necessities. Huo Ling had once lamented that with her around, his master could even dispense with the 7 maidservants. She only thought that he was joking. Just based on Hong Yi's ability, she was unable to reach her level. That was an ability that had been honed over the years, so how could it compare to her, a dabbler? She took care of his clothes, then took out a cloak that was thicker than usual and placed it beside his hand. Big Ice Cube, the Jiang Kingdom is too cold. When you get off the boat today, put on this cloak to ward off the cold. Chu Qingyan folded his clothes and casually said to him. Xiao Su moved his gaze away from the book and landed on her. His gaze was deep as he responded, N. It was hard to imagine that the two of them who had been at loggerheads with each other in the Prince's Fu a few months ago were now speaking so intimately. He couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. He didn't know if it was because this journey was bumpy, or if it was a road of no return, but he had been feeling quite emotional recently. Big Ice Cube, you read books every day. Don't you feel tired? Chu Qingyan saw that if he wasn't reading documents in the past, he would be reading books or practicing martial arts. Now that he was far away from the royal court, his number of documents had decreased quite a bit. His body didn't allow it, so he didn't practice martial arts. He only read books all day without any other entertainment. She couldn't help but feel that he was too boring. You're never too old to learn. He lightly said and refuted her until she was speechless. Chu Qingyan curled her lips. She looked down and saw the name of the book, 6 Secret Techniques. This name was so familiar. She seemed to have heard it somewhere before. Seeing her furrow her brows, Xiao Su could guess what she was thinking, 6 Secret Techniques, the ancestor of the art of war. The 6 secret techniques are divided into Wen Tao, Wu Tao, Long Tao, Tiger Tao, Leopard Tao, Quan Tao, and Wen Tao is mainly. Chu Qingyan felt that she was starting to feel dizzy when she heard it. Xiao Su saw that she was spacing out. He picked up the book and patted her head. If you don't work hard when you're young, you'll be sad when you're old. I won't be sad. You're here. Chu Qingyan covered her head and deliberately talked back. Relying on the heavens, the earth, and your parents is better than relying on yourself. Xiao Su shook his head and closed the book in his hands. Chu Qingyan felt that she was being looked down on. She wasn't that bad, okay? But Big Ice Cube was right. Relying on herself was the best guarantee. She thought that she would practice the Heaven and Earth sword a few more times today to familiarize herself with it. Then she would discuss it with Turan. There were a few moves that she felt that the posture was wrong. She didn't know if she remembered the moves wrongly. Why do you suddenly want to practice martial arts? Xiao Su lightly said. Chu Qingyan smiled when she heard that. She rested her chin on her hands and smiled like a flower. Big Ice Cube, didn't you say that relying on the heavens, the earth, and your parents is better than relying on yourself? I'm relying on myself. Xiao Su didn't believe that she could apply what she had learned on the spot. Although your moves are neat, they're not very lethal. You've only reached 50% of the strength of the Heaven and Earth sword and the Blazing Flame sword. But you're still young, so it's normal that you don't have enough strength. Xiao Su commented. Regardless of whether she was doing it for fun or on a whim, he was using his experience to point out her shortcomings. Chu Qingyan nodded humbly. I also feel that my moves aren't as powerful as Turin's. But being young isn't an excuse. I'm still weak. What can I do to improve? Big Ice Cube was an outstanding swordsman. Wouldn't it be her loss if she didn't ask him? Moreover, he said that receiving guidance from an expert was better than years of practice. First, improve your inner strength. You've been learning for so long, but you haven't touched inner strength. Just having sword moves won't last long. But I'll ask Turin to arrange for you to learn this when we reach Jiang country. From the little fellow's tone, it seemed that she was really interested in practicing martial arts. Since that was the case, he didn't need to restrain her. The most basic thing for her to follow him was to have good martial arts skills. He didn't need to worry too much about her. Okay. Chu Qingyan nodded happily, then looked outside. Big Ice Cube, we'll reach Jiang country at noon. There's still some time. What should we do? She was testing. In fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to go back to her room to make up for it. Who knew? Go back to your room. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She was about to agree. Bring the zither here. I'll teach you. Clang. She lay on the table and wailed. Did he have to be so cruel? Xiao Su's lips curved into a smile. This winter didn't seem to be as boring as before. Chapter 385. Although she was whining, it was useless. Because Big Ice Cube was a man of his words. Chu Qingyan put her hands on the zither. She did not know how to play it before, but now she knew how to play it. It's too stiff. Relax. Xiao Su corrected her. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she felt a layer of cold sweat forming on her forehead. How can I relax with such a powerful cold god sitting behind me? Do you think you are playing cotton? Another voice came from behind her. Chu Qingyan felt that it was wrong for her to use too much strength, but it was also wrong for her to not use too much strength. She was really in a hurry. In the end, perhaps Xiao Su could not stand it anymore. He reached out from behind her and held her hand in a hugging position. Then he led her to play the zither. The rough and unpleasant sound of the zither poured out like flowing water and was pleasant to the ears. Chu Qingyan originally felt that her playing was terrible and did not want to continue learning. However, when she heard the clear sound of the zither flowing from her fingertips, she felt that it was very novel. As she played along with Big Ice Cube, her interest was piqued. Xiao Su looked at her glowing cheeks and put all his attention into it. Then he withdrew his hand. She could play simple music now. Big Ice Cube, I am so good. In the modern world, she was useless at playing musical instruments. Now that she could play one or two tunes, she could not be more satisfied. Where there is a will, there is a way. Xiao Su curled his lips. Chu Qingyan continued to play a few more times. Suddenly, she had an idea and asked, if I sing a song, can you play it? I'll give it a try. Xiao Su thought for a moment before replying. Okay, it is the Song of the Stars. Chu Qingyan said with a smile. She had sung this song to Big Ice Cube before. She was about to sing it again when she saw that he had already started playing. Chu Qingyan was speechless. She did not expect Big Ice Cube to remember the tune after only hearing it once. It was as if he had never forgotten it. Amazing. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Xiao Su was already used to it. It's just talent. Was it good to praise himself like that? Chu Qingyan cursed silently. The ancient songs were too complicated. For a beginner like her, the Song of the Stars was more suitable for her, so Xiao Su taught her this song first. When Hualing came in to inform them that the ship was about to enter the harbor, Chu Qingyan could basically play this song by herself. Xiao Su withdrew his hand and stood up. Get ready to dock. Hualing accepted the order and left. As early as yesterday, everyone had already packed their things and could disembark as soon as the ship docked at the port. When Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan walked onto the deck, Xiao Lai Qi and the others were already dressed as guards, standing behind Xiao Su. Chu Qingyan was dressed as a youth with Xining and Jin Xian standing behind her. Because it was winter, even in the afternoon, there weren't many people going in and out. There were only 3 to 5 ships docked at the harbor. The soldiers wearing dark green uniforms walked in an orderly manner, patrolling back and forth. It was a quiet and warm afternoon. "We're finally here, Jiang country." Chu Qingyan opened her hands and welcomed the wind. Her lips were filled with a smile and her voice was filled with joy. Xiao Su's calm eyes also revealed a trace of relief because of her mood. As far as the eye could see, there were endless mountains and lush evergreen trees everywhere. The seawater was crystal clear, and the reflection of the water along the shore was a sky full of white clouds. Chu Qingyan thought that perhaps this was a good start. Although her right eyelid kept twitching, she didn't care at all. The ship docked at the harbor and a group of people walked down. Chu Qingyan looked at the empty harbor and looked around. Then, she asked with a puzzled expression, "Big Ice Cube, where's your old friend?" Xiao Su glanced at the harbor and frowned slightly. At this moment, Wu Ling heard the voice and walked over with a smile. "Master, young Master Yi said that he's waiting for us at the checkpoint." Chu Qingyan looked in the direction Wu Ling was pointing and saw a door plate appear in front of her. It was the checkpoint. She couldn't help but smile. This was a bit like the security checkpoint where one had to get off a train and get out with a ticket. Thus, the group of people smoothly passed through the checkpoint with Zhen Zixing's official document. They were still disguised as merchants who entered Jiang country to do business, but they were currently from Junlan, not Sichuan. Chu Qingyan had to admit that Zhen Zixing's actions not only helped them cut off the Sichuan country's tracking, but also used the identity of Junlan as a cover. Although she was dissatisfied with Zhen Zixing and despised him for threatening Big Ice Cube, he helped them a lot on the way to Jiang country smoothly. It could be said that his merits offset his faults. "Brother Xiao, did you crawl here? I thought you would only come when your hair turned white." A rude teasing voice sounded from the side. Chu Qingyan was stunned. This voice was as moving as the snow falling in winter, and the wind blowing through the willow branches. Just by hearing this voice, Chu Qingyan already had a good impression of this person. "It seems that you still look as youthful as before." Xiao Su didn't show any mercy and retorted lightly. "Tisk, tsk, tsk. You're still so cold. I don't know if you'll freeze the people around you to death. I think it's better if you don't come in winter. Jiang country is already cold. If you come, I'll probably freeze," the voice said with a gentle smile. From this exchange, it could be seen that Big Ice Cube had a good relationship with this person. At least, it was the first time in her memory that someone could speak to Big Ice Cube in such a tone. "Where is he?" Mr. Chu looked around curiously. Chu Qingyan scanned her surroundings, but she could not see anyone. "Big Ice Cube, why doesn't your old friend come out to meet us?" she asked in a low voice. At this time, after entering the entrance, they could see a bustling crowd. Compared to outside the port, it was like a market and a wilderness. It was also because of this that they didn't know where he was. However, judging from his voice, he should be quite young. "It's still so noisy. If you don't come out, we'll leave." Xiao Su didn't give him face. After saying that, he led the group forward. "It's really not fun. You're still so boring after so many years." The other party seemed to be shaking his head and sighing. As soon as he finished speaking, a light blue figure came out of the crowd against the flow. He was particularly eye-catching. Although it was winter, he held a folding fan in his hand and fanned himself from time to time. His simple brocade robe fluttered in the wind. The corners of his robe shone with a golden light under the sun, and the thin golden threads on his robe could be faintly seen. His facial features were deep and straight. The corners of his peach blossom eyes were slightly raised, and instantly lit up his entire face. He looked around and his eyes were full of affection. It seemed that as long as one looked into his eyes, one would be able to indulge in his tenderness. What an elegant and handsome man with affectionate eyes. Chu Qingyan finally saw what it meant to have peach blossoms shining brightly, and so did the person in front of her. Chapter 386. Yi Lingfeng waved his fan and walked out leisurely. Every step he took was elegant, solemn, and candid. When he arrived in front of the crowd, he clasped his hands together and smiled. I am Yi Lingfeng, handsome and confident. My face is like Song Yu's, and my appearance is better than Pan An's. Greetings, everyone. Originally, the crowd was still subdued by this handsome man, but the moment he opened his mouth, everyone's worldview was shattered. Chu Qingyan touched the goosebumps on her arm. She really wanted to ask, bro, do you still have your integrity? As if he was already used to everyone's gazes, Yi Lingfeng's gaze landed on Chu Qingyan. He smiled amiably and said, this must be Brother Xiao's wife. She is really obedient and wanly. Brother Xiao is a perfect match. Hearing his words, Chu Qingyan trembled with goosebumps again. She was still young and dressed in men's clothes. How could he see her beauty? This person really seemed to have soaked in honey. He was so glib-tongued. No wonder Big Ice Cube said that he had been through thousands of flowers, but not a single leaf touched him. He was simply a typical example of a romantic wastrel. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and looked at him. You have a problem with that? Yi Lingfeng flung away his fan and covered his mouth to smile. I dare not, I dare not. It's just that when we parted that year, I thought Brother Xiao would be alone for the rest of his life. I didn't expect you to find a partner earlier than me and Feng Yi. It's really unexpected. Chu Qingyan deeply agreed. With Big Ice Cube's personality, he might really be alone for the rest of his life. However, when she thought about it again, she found it funny that she was dragged into it again. Chu Qingyan greets young Master Yi. The trip to Jiang country will depend on young Master Yi. Chu Qingyan nodded in greeting. After all, politeness demands reciprocity. Although this person looked a bit like a playboy, he spoke elegantly and she quite liked his personality. Moreover, he could become friends with Big Ice Cube. He must have his unique side. After all, one could not judge a person by their appearance. Thus, it was very important to have a good relationship with him. Your family's girl is still the most polite. Your personality is like a latrine stone, smelly and hard. Yi Lingfeng looked at Xiao Su with some disdain. Xiao Su was familiar with his good friend's personality. If he allowed him to continue talking, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to avoid anything. You always talk so much nonsense. Yi Lingfeng waved his fan and shrugged. You're always so quiet. If your girl lived with you, she would probably be bored to death by you. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she once again deeply agreed. She wanted to nod, but when she met the Big Ice Cube's gaze, her neck stiffened and she didn't dare to move. She grinned at him to express her goodwill, but unfortunately, he didn't appreciate it and turned his head to ignore her. Let's go. If we don't leave now, it's going to be dark soon. Tonight, this young master is going to bring you all to Linlang Pavilion to listen to music. Recently, there have been a few beautiful ladies with graceful figures. Their singing is really good. Yi Lingfeng called out. As soon as he finished speaking, a few people who looked like servants appeared out of nowhere. They took the luggage from Xining and the others and led them forward. Chu Qingyan turned her head with some confusion and asked, Big Ice Cube, what kind of place is this Linlang Pavilion? Is it a restaurant? When she heard Yi Lingfeng talking about singing, why did she have the misconception that it was a place of fireworks and wine? Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. Don't pay attention to him. He's just talking nonsense again. Chu Qingyan nodded. At this moment, a solicitous voice sounded from behind them. May I ask your name? How old are you? Where do you live? Are you engaged? Are your parents still alive? Do you have someone you like? Wasn't this Yi Lingfeng's voice? Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw Yi Lingfeng smiling like a spring breeze. He bent over and asked Chen Yanluo seriously. Cough, cough. Was this called a graceful version of flirting? Big Ice Cube, is this how people in the Jiang Kingdom hit on girls? Chu Qingyan twitched her mouth and asked the person beside her. He's not from the Jiang Kingdom. This is his personal nature. You don't have to pay attention to him. Someone will come to tease him later. Xiao Su calculated the time. That person should be arriving soon. Who was it? Chu Qingyan was full of curiosity. Cheng Yanluo did not expect this person to be so bold as to ask so many questions at once. She wanted to turn him down with a cold face, but when she caught a glimpse of the indifferent look on Kong Ling's face, she was inexplicably annoyed. Without thinking, she put on a smile and said, "My name is Cheng Yanluo. Greetings to young Master Yi." She thought that Yi Lingfeng would be rebuffed. She didn't expect to hear such a sweet reply from Sister Yanluo. She almost fell. Cheng Yanluo. What a good name. Yi Lingfeng patted his fan and smiled charmingly. It's right for a gentle and beautiful lady like Miss Cheng to come to the Jiang Kingdom. There's nothing much to say about the Jiang Kingdom. It's famous for women's accessories. When the time comes, I'll bring Miss Cheng around. Perhaps you'll find something you like. Then I'll have to trouble you, young Master Yi. Cheng Yanluo smiled. When Hualing saw this, he poked the person beside him. Hey, your woman is about to be stolen. Why aren't you stopping him? She has her own freedom. I have no right to interfere. Ethereal looked away. He didn't want to see her chatting intimately with someone else. However, just because he couldn't see it didn't mean that he couldn't hear it. He heard the conversation and his expression turned ugly. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. Had Sister Yanluo changed her personality? Didn't she hate flirtatious men? What was wrong with her today? Yi Lingfeng had already prepared a carriage for them. After they got in, they headed to the nearest city gate. The group was travel-worn, but they soon arrived at a restaurant. The words Lin Lang Pavilion were written on the signboard. Chu Qingyan lifted the curtains and saw a group of scantily clad women leaning against the railings. They greeted them when they saw them. Dear guests, we have the most expensive sea cucumbers and the most delicious abalones. Come in and have a taste. If they hadn't mentioned food, she would have thought that they were in a brothel. It was still somewhat unbearable to be so ostentatious in broad daylight. Hualing and the rest exchanged glances before turning to look at their master, waiting for his orders. Chu Qingyan also turned to look at him. To be honest, she wouldn't be able to eat anything in such a place, no matter how good the food was. What's wrong? Aren't you getting off the carriage? This is a place I specially chose. Not only can you eat delicious food, but you can also admire beauties. There's no other place like this in the entire town. Yi Lingfeng walked to the side of Xiao Su's carriage and leisurely spoke while fanning himself with his fan. Xiao Su looked at him coldly. I'll give you two choices. Go somewhere else, or stay here and let us go. Yi Lingfeng sighed. You're still the same. You've been traveling for so many years. What's there to be afraid of? What a waste of resources. After he said that, he turned around and beckoned everyone to leave for the next location. Chapter 387. As the carriage continued to move forward, Chu Qingyan opened her mouth and said, Big Ice Cube, your friend is really unexpected. Xiao Su curled his lips. He was just teasing you just now, he won't really bring you in. Then why is he doing this? Is it really fun? Chu Qingyan rubbed her head, not understanding this person's personality. Xiao Su shook his head helplessly. This friend of his found joy in provoking him, but he couldn't do it every time, so he would occasionally think of some dirty tricks. There were women and children in the carriage, so he knew that no matter how mischievous he was, he still had a sense of propriety. Not long after, the carriage stopped again. This time, it was a restaurant. "Young Master Yi, welcome, welcome. You haven't come to our Yellow Crane restaurant in a while." The moment he saw Yi Lingfeng, the restaurant owner came out to welcome him. "We even brought an important guest today. Your presence brings light to our humble dwelling." The restaurant owner's flattery made Yi Lingfeng reveal a smile. "Boss Lin is too polite. Prepare a large private room, this young master wants to entertain a guest." "Good, good, good. I will have someone arrange it. This way please." Boss Lin was very respectful as he bowed in invitation. Yi Lingfeng turned around and smiled at everyone. "The Jiang country's dishes here are very authentic, try it later." Thus, everyone followed him up the stairs. What is this Yi Lingfeng's background? Why is the restaurant owner so attentive to him? Chu Qingyan followed a few steps behind and asked Hualing. Hualing replied, "The Yi family is in the silk business, and their shops are all over the Jiang country, monopolizing the clothing of the imperial harem of the Jiang country's imperial family. Young Master Yi is the only son of the Yi family, so this subordinate doesn't need to say anything. This little young master can already guess young Master Yi's background in the Jiang country." Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. If it was just shops all over the Jiang country, it wouldn't be a big deal, but if he was in charge of the Jiang country's imperial family's clothing, then it would be different. Whether it was the common people or the high officials and nobles, they had always used the imperial harem's clothing as the mainstream clothing every year. Once a harem wore a certain clothing, it would quickly become popular in the high society. For a merchant to be able to reach such a stage, it would be a lie if he didn't have many connections behind him. Thinking of this, Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up slightly. The royal clothes of the Jiang kingdom? Then, could he follow this path to find the ice crystal flower? When the dishes were served, Yi Lingfeng invited everyone to enjoy. Mrs. Chu was a little tired, so she went to her room with Mr. Chu to rest. Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan, Cheng Yanluo, and the others sat around the table. After introducing the dishes on the table, Yi Lingfeng felt a gaze on him. He paused and turned around. "Little girl from the Xiao family, you keep looking at me. Aren't you worried that Xiao Su will be jealous?" Xiao Su glanced at him indifferently. "She's just guessing your identity." "I see." Yi Lingfeng opened his fan and waved it. "Little girl from the Xiao family, your family's Xiao Su really understands you. You almost scared this young master to death. You shouldn't covet your friend's wife." The corners of Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. This person really didn't know what to say. Xiao Su said coldly, "Even food can't shut your mouth." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but praise him in her heart. The big ice cube was really domineering. "You're really protective. I was just teasing you, but you're serious. But honestly, little girl from the Xiao family, you've been looking at me for so long. Do you have any questions?" Yi Lingfeng didn't care about his friend's cold face. He said with great interest, "Do you think that I'm handsome, so you want to abandon the dark side and join the light side?" Abandon the dark side and join the light side? The usage of this idiom was really too. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that with such a friend, the big ice cube would be even colder. "Young Master Yi, you're thinking too much. Qingyan heard that you're in the royal silk business. Have you heard of the ice crystal flower?" She didn't beat around the bush and chose to get straight to the point. Sister Yan Luo said that the snake kiss poison could only be controlled for 81 days. Almost half of the time had passed. If there was no progress, then the poison in the big ice cube's body. Yi Lingfeng raised his eyebrows. He was a little surprised by Chu Qingyan's straightforwardness. He didn't answer Chu Qingyan. Instead, he turned to Xiao Su and said, "Are you sure that your little wife is 10 years old and not 20 years old? You can't judge a book by its cover." Xiao Su took a sip of tea and replied slowly. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. She had to admit that this playboy had seen countless people in the field of love. He could tell her mental age at a glance. However, her age was there for all to see, so she wasn't afraid that he would see through her. Instead, she waited for his answer with sparkling eyes. You seem to be quite proud, Yi Lingfeng muttered to himself. Then, he turned to Chu Qingyan and said seriously, I already know about the ice crystal flower. However, for so many years, there has been a rumor in the Jiang Kingdom that the ice crystal flower is in the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace and is being carefully kept in the imperial study by the Jiang Kingdom's emperor. It's a pity that this is only a rumor. I've sent people to inquire about it. So many officials have entered the imperial study, but no one has seen the ice crystal flower. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but purse her lips. She was a little anxious. Even with Yi Lingfeng's connections, he couldn't find it. Wouldn't it be even harder for outsiders like them? Xiao Su sensed her uneasiness and gently stroked her head. Don't worry. Let nature take its course. Chu Qingyan knew that there was no other way but to wait. Cheng Yanluo and the others were already used to the interaction between the two, but in Yi Lingfeng's eyes, it was like a red rain falling from the sky. Was this still the cold, heartless, and unapproachable Xiao Su that he knew? It seemed that he had to reevaluate this Chu Qingyan. What was so special about her that Xiao Su treated her differently? Chu Qingyan inadvertently raised her eyes and saw a certain someone who had always been elegant, looking like he had seen a ghost. It was a little comical. Huo Ling and the others shook their heads. If young Master Yi saw her a few more times a day, he would probably get used to it. Thus, everyone began to eat. At this time, Yi Lingfeng turned to Cheng Yanluo and politely said, Miss Cheng, try this autumn maple leaf. It's slightly spicy and has a very crisp texture. Alright, thank you, young Master Yi. Cheng Yanluo smiled and put a piece into her mouth. The taste was really good. She nodded at Yi Lingfeng. Seeing this, Kong Ling's eyes dimmed. He lowered his head and drank the wine in his cup. Miss Cheng, don't call me young Master Yi. It's too formal. You can just call me Lingfeng. Can I also call you Yanluo? Yi Lingfeng said with a smile. Chu Qingyan choked on her soup. Wasn't this flirting a little too fast? Just as Yi Lingfeng was waiting for Cheng Yanluo's response, a delicate voice sounded through the door. Yi Lingfeng, you bastard. How dare you flirt with other women with your back facing me? Chapter 388. As soon as she said that, Chu Qingyan clearly saw the gentle smile on Yi Lingfeng's face twitch unnaturally. Oh no, she found me again. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, she was willing to talk to Yi Lingfeng only because she wanted to annoy Murongju. Even without him, she still had suitors. However, when she saw his indifferent expression, she had already given up on that thought. She felt that there was no need to change herself just because of a fit of pique. As soon as his voice fell, the door of the private room opened, and a beautiful young girl wearing a rose-colored long dress walked out. She had a crystal necklace with rose petals on her forehead. Her appearance was sweet, fresh, and refined, like a fairy from the jade pool who had accidentally entered the mortal world. At first sight, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but exclaim in her heart. What a little fairy! However, this little fairy seemed to be in a bad mood. Her brows were raised and her grape-like eyes swept across the crowd. Finally, her gaze fell on Yi Lingfeng, who had been trying to reduce his presence. Then, she strode over angrily. Chu Qingyan's seat just happened to be close to Yi Lingfeng. Seeing that she was about to settle scores, she immediately moved aside to make space for her. Just when everyone thought that a big fight was about to break out, the rose-like young girl walked up to Yi Lingfeng. Suddenly, she blinked her eyes, and tears of innocence and grievance filled her big eyes. She pursed her lips and said, Lingfeng, why are you always avoiding me? From Yangcheng to here, wherever I chased you, you immediately disappeared. If I didn't see you here today, I think I would have lost you again. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. Didn't she say that she wanted to catch the adulterer and settle scores? Something didn't seem right. Yi Lingfeng seemed to have gotten used to the other party's way of speaking. The unnatural expression on his face quickly disappeared. He greeted her politely, "So it's Miss Dugu. I didn't expect to meet you in such a remote place. What a coincidence. What coincidence? This lady followed you here. Don't tell me you don't know." The rose-like young girl glared at him indignantly. Her previous gentleness was swept away and she said hatefully. Upon hearing his words, she knew that he wanted to cut ties with her again. Yi Lingfeng still had a courteous smile on his handsome face. "Miss Dugu, you're still an unmarried lady. It's best if you don't say such things. It will ruin your reputation." Chu Qingyan blinked. This man had just been flirting with Yen Luo. How did he turn into an upright gentleman in front of this little girl in the blink of an eye? Could it be that this person had two faces? As Chu Qingyan ate, she enjoyed the free show that she was watching. Lady Rosa Multiflora reacted as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She frowned and swept her gaze across the table. Finally, her gaze landed on Qing Yenluo. She pointed at her and said angrily to Yi Lingfeng, "These are all your excuses. You were still shamelessly trying to curry favor with this lady. Don't think that I didn't hear you. Yi Lingfeng, you womanizer." Qing Yenluo was called out, but her face was calm. She thought that this little girl's words were quite amusing. It didn't matter if he was exposed, but if he was humiliated in front of his good friend, no matter how magnanimous he was, he wouldn't be able to keep his face. Yi Lingfeng put away his smile and said in a serious voice, "Miss Dugu, please don't talk nonsense. This is a rumor." Lady Rosa Multiflora ignored his change in expression and turned to Chu Qingyan. "Little brother, we've talked for so long. I'm dying of thirst. Help me pour a cup of tea." Chu Qingyan was amused. This little girl was quite cute. It seemed that this was going to be a long battle. She immediately poured a cup of tea and handed it to the girl. She even instructed, "Drink slowly. There's no rush. Take your time and settle the score." When Yi Lingfeng heard this, he cast a reproachful look at Xiao Su. "It's fine if you don't persuade her, but why are you fanning the flames?" Xiao Su glanced back at him. "You call this fanning the flames? You're the one who caused this peach blossom debt. You should settle it yourself. You're lucky that the little guy didn't make trouble for you. Sure enough, he's a master who protects his own." Yi Lingfeng hatefully said in his heart. Lady Rosa Multiflora took the tea and drank it in one gulp. It was obvious that she was really thirsty, but she didn't hesitate. She raised her sleeve to wipe the water from the corner of her mouth, and then continued to speak to Yi Lingfeng with righteous indignation. "I don't care. Anyway, you promised me that you would take care of me for a lifetime. You actually abandoned me. Where did the etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame that you studied go?" Yi Lingfeng held his forehead. If he had known that she was like this, he wouldn't have provoked her in the first place. It was as if he had dug a hole for himself and accidentally buried himself in it. Chu Qingyan felt that to be able to make such a wanderer reveal such a distressed look, this girl's skill was really admirable. She saw her eyes rolling around the whole table of food. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but find it funny and said to her, "Sister Dugu, you haven't eaten yet, right? Take a rest first. If there's anything, we can talk about it later. First, eat with us." Once she finished speaking, Chu Qingyan asked for another pair of chopsticks and bowls to be prepared. Young Lady Rose did not reject the offer. She smiled innocently at Chu Qingyan and said, "All right, then I won't stand on ceremony." As soon as the chopsticks and bowls were served, the little girl unceremoniously started to eat. Although she was very hungry, her behavior was gentle and polite. Chu Qingyan felt that although she spoke lively and cheerful, when she was quiet, she gave people a completely opposite feeling. Her every move was elegant and natural. Chu Qingyan felt that even a big family might not be able to raise such a girl. You little brother is really cute. This girl is very fond of you. My name is Dugu Qing. What's your name? Dugu Qing, who was half full, asked her with a smile. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. My name is Chu Qingyan. I'm very happy to meet you, Sister Dugu. She felt that this Dugu Qing should be 15 or 16 years old. Her appearance was likable, her personality was cheerful, and her speech was not like those girls in ancient times. Instead, she had the air of a big family, so she also felt close to her. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she casually introduced the people at the table. Yi Lingfeng originally wanted to send her away after she finished eating, but he didn't expect her to chat and laugh with everyone, so he swallowed his words. Dugu Qing wasn't afraid of strangers. After getting familiar with everyone, she looked at Qing Yanluo seriously and said earnestly, Sister Yanluo, Lingfeng is a womanizer. Don't be fooled by him. 10 days ago, he cheated a girl from a pastry shop. 5 days ago, he cheated a girl from a rouge shop. 3 days ago, he hit on a young lady from an official's family. He's really a womanizer. Don't be fooled by him. Hey, Yi Lingfeng, why are you grabbing me? Before she could finish speaking, Yi Lingfeng grabbed her wrist and dragged her to the door. Before he left, he said to everyone, I have some private matters to attend to. I'll be back in a while. Everyone, please forgive me. Chu Qingyan listened to the shouting from near and far. She was puzzled and asked the person beside her, why does your good friend sound like a womanizer? Does he specialize in deceiving innocent girls? Xiao Su's hand that was holding the cup paused. He said faintly, that's why you should stay away from him. Oh. Pfft, if Yi Lingfeng heard his good friend's words, he would probably bleed. His reputation would be ruined for no reason. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.